Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Gran Touring Series Racing League, the GTSRL Season 39, Round Number 2. And tonight, we are at the Croatian circuit of Dragon Trail Gardens for the midway point of the season, and we'll be taking our look at EU Division 2, the mid-tier of the EU divisions, as last night EU Division 1 got underway with some fast and furious racing around the circuit, and tonight we're looking at that mid-tier group who have proven to be very fast, they've been very aggressive, and they've also been very respectful, and we're expecting some more cracking racing from the guys as they make their way around the very tricky Croatian circuit, which is all about handling and nailing your apexes. Gardens being one of those circuits which will make men out of drivers, but also cause a lot of drivers to go into the weeds if they don't get it right. Indeed, you've got to be well prepared to cut the grass here, because the gardens need mowing and the fastest drivers will do so very well. I'm your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and welcome to tonight's cast in the English language as we say hello to Jerry Racecar Driver and Peachy Earl in the chat. And indeed, if you are tuning into the stream, don't be afraid to say hi, let me know how your week's been so far. It is Tuesday, we're almost at the midpoint of the week, we're almost into hump day, and it's been a good week so far on my end, and I'm looking forward to even more commentating and fast and furious action tonight. And indeed, why not? Let's get that adrenaline flowing. We have got a huge number of corners here. We have got some slow speed corners, we've got chicanes, we've got medium speed corners, we've got a quadruple right hander, we've got hairpins, we've got double hairpins, you name it, we've got it at Gardens. Whilst it's not a favourite circuit of many, I love this circuit because it really makes you have to jump on your toes, keep on your toes throughout, and well, we look forward to seeing what the best of the best can do here tonight. But without further ado then, let's get underway with introducing our drivers once again and recapping the story from last week. So as things currently stand, EU Division 2 is in a bit of an interesting position in the fact that we do have one driver who has run away with things a little bit, and that is the Estonian of Peachy Earl. Now, of course, he's got Visit Estonia on the back of the car to make sure that I always remember he is from Estonia, not Finland, but with Finland being the closest country to where he lives, what with Estonia not being represented in GT Sport due to political reasons. As a result, he's got the Finnish flag there, but we refer to him as our friendly Estonian, a fantastic driver. And indeed, Peachy, last time out, as he makes his way through the first sector right now, Peachy picked up all 49 points on offer from the first three races in round one at Yamagiwa, with wins in all three of the races, albeit whilst the first two races were a little bit more in Peachy's favour, the final race he had to work very hard for it, and indeed HBoss GT RP2 man really took the fight to the Estonian, and Peachy had to do it out of the circuit. He did it in the end. On the final lap he made the overtake, what with Peachy having opted to go for fresher tyres in the pit stop, whereas HBoss decided to stay with his original tyre set, which whilst it gave him a time advantage out on the circuit and the position advantage, in the end Peachy could make the greater grip work and simply pass HBoss before the finishing line. But of course, we're not expecting Peachy to dominate here tonight. If anything but that, Peachy has been the strongest driver in EU Division 2 after round 1, but he does have a number of drivers nipping at his heels and keeping him honest. And HBoss GT, our P2 driver, is the first one of those who's not currently in the lobby, but we are expecting HBoss to arrive in short order. Indeed, he has just arrived in the lobby. He'll be down in the paddock soon enough. And HBoss at the moment on 41.5 points after what was an impressive debut in round 1 last time out for his GTSRL career. Now we are going to hopefully see him come out into the pit lane, so that way we can actually introduce the driver and have him on screen for you at the same time. But to give you an idea, HBoss on his debut, 41.5 points, what was effectively 2 fourth place finishes in races 1 and 2. And here is the man in question, the British driver, as we can see, bringing his KTM Expo, or crossbow, as we should really refer to it, not an expo there, that'd be a hilarious one to say that for the entirety of the cast, but bringing his crossbow out, and indeed, with the 2 full places being backed up by a second place, HBoss really coming to life over the course of the evening last week, and we look forward to seeing what the British driver can do, and how much pressure he can put on the Estonian who's leading the way at the moment. It's at that point that we have to come on to K2 Exxon, our Dutch driver who's currently in P3 in the standings for the Drivers' Championship on 40 points, chasing after HBoss. And K2 had a mixed night, albeit up towards the top throughout the evening, but he had a mixed night in round number 1, and I think he would have hoped that race number 1 in particular would have gone better for him, in the fact that he finished 5th in race number 1, then in race 2 he finished 3rd, and in race 3 he finished 3rd again. So improving form, but K2 has been one of those drivers who, if somebody's going to punish themselves for doing well but knowing they could have have done better, then the Dutchman right here is probably your number one guy to go to. He's got that Verstappen feel to him in terms of the overall aggression he has, not in terms of treating drivers out on track too aggressively, but that aggression with himself. He knows when it's not been a good day at the office, when he's had a bad race, and the first thing he wants to do is fix that as soon as possible because he wants wins, and we hope that K2 could get himself back onto that podium tonight, if not go for those outright wins. We'd love to see him on that top step. He is only 1.5 points ahead of our friendly Austrian, and that is Pingo Phone. Noot, here we go. Noot Racing Mobile here. And as he makes his way up towards the final double hairpin corner, effectively, because it has two apexes in a single hairpin, that's why we treat it as a double corner. There are two turns, the first left which Pingo's going for, and then the second left. The Austrian having a good set of results the last time out, 38.5 points being accrued for what was a third place in race number 1, a second place in race number 2, a very hard fought second place in race number 2, and at one point he was looking on course for the win, but it didn't quite materialise in the end. And then in race number 3, a 6th place, what was a difficult race number 3, which compromised Pingo Phone's earnings over the course of the evening. Otherwise he'd be best placed to be taking the fight to H-Boss and Peachy for the top of the podium in the Drivers' Championship. But again, do not underestimate Pingo. We know that he is a fast driver and he is a very consistent driver when he absolutely nails it spot on, albeit he didn't nail it there through the opening chicane, but we look forward to seeing what he's able to achieve tonight. That's our top 4, and they really form our first pack of cars in terms of drivers who are battling for a position in the championship. So they're battling for the top position, i.e. first place. We then got to jump a good 7 points down to Roland 92, but we'll refer to him as we get our driver's notes up once again. Roland also goes under the name of what is, I believe, our Dutch. And we're just trying to find the man out on the circuit right now, and I don't believe he's quite here at this point in time. But our Dutch in that position at the moment where he's leading the battle for P5 in the standings. We haven't got him on screen for you. We'll try and find him when he does arrive. But currently sat on 31.5 points with a second place in race number 1. And then in race number 2, only 8 points of what was in the end a 7th place finish. And then in race number 3, another difficult one, a 9th place finish. And things went from good to bad to worse effectively for our Dutch over the course of the evening. But we'll be looking forward to seeing what he's able to achieve tonight. As we say hello to Zoronic in the chat. And good evening to you, Zoronic. We hope you're doing well. However, Roland is not going to be running away with things in the fact that he does have a very fast charging driver after him. In fact, on the same points, but due to result count back, he's currently in 6th, whereas our Dutch is in 5th, and that is the British driver of Notnats GT as he makes his way through turn 1 and down towards the chicane at turns 2, 3 and 4. The triple chicane. Now, Notnats GT last time out, making his debut in EU Division 2 for season 39. 31.5 points being accrued from what was a performance that started off in the midfield but continued to improve over the course of the evening. A 7th place finish in race number 1, a 8th place finish in race number 2, and I should clarify that our Dutch picked up an 8th place finish in race number 3. But going back to Notnats, a 8th place finish in race number 2, and then in race number 3, what was an improving sense of form with a 4th place finish. Notnats really came to life in the feature length race of the evening at Yamagiwa, and we look forward to seeing what Notnats is able to achieve tonight. In fact, he has got good pace there, but he seems to take a while to build it up and unleash it over the course of the racing. Then we come on to our P7 driver, and that is HRL, who's making his way down through turn number 1 as we speak. The British driver coming into the corner right now on a tight line here, currently sat on 26 points and chasing after our Dutch and Notnats in that hunt for P5 in the championship, albeit he's 5.5 points down on those guys at the moment after what was a difficult start to his evening, finishing dead last in race number 1, but then he saw an improvement in form rather rapidly, finishing in 6th place in race number 2 and then a 5th place in race number 3, and we hope that trend of form continues for HRL tonight, because if he is able to continue that form, then it's going to be up, up, up from here. We then come on to our 8th place man, and that is Golden Dagger, whose name we completely butchered at the start of last week's commentary, but we fixed very quickly. The Dutchman making his way down towards the tricky hairpin corner, the slowest corner on the circuit, which is effectively turn number 5 if you exclude the little left-hand kink leading down to it, which we're going to for the purposes of the way we talk about the track. But as Dagger makes his way now up the hill through 6, 7, 8, and up towards 9 through to 12, we can see the Dutchman on 22 points right now, having a difficult evening as well, much like the drivers around him last time out. Yamagiwa in the fact that in race number 1 he came home with a 6th place finish and it was looking very strong, but then in race number 2 heading right to the back of the field, having a very difficult race in race number 2, things did not work out, and I believe there were a couple of incidents which he was involved in. And then in race number 3 a recovery drive to what was in the end a 6th place, sorry not a 6th place, a 7th place finish. Dagan having a mixed result, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to do tonight and perhaps find just a little bit more consistency and a little bit more flow here in terms of his achievements and point scores at the Croatian circuit. But never say never, he's only 4 points down on P7 right now. You've then only got another 2 points to go down until you get to another Dutchman, and we come on to our driver who is also hosting the lobby tonight and is our trackside steward. That is Jerry R. Driver, the Dutchman currently sat in the pits, raring to go and get out there on circuit as he's organising all our drivers and making sure they're all in voice chat. And Jerry R. Driver, the lead of 2 brothers who are racing around on the circuit tonight, of course. The Dutchman on what is 20 points, having a difficult evening last time out. It started off relatively well, Jerry picking up what was a 8th place finish in race number 1, and then it was a 5th place finish in race number 2, and then it went a bit downhill from there, a 9th place finish in race number 3. So it started off well but then started to decline again, and Jerry of course will be looking to avoid those declines and try to keep the results going up, up and up, or at least make sure they remain consistent. But Jerry of course being one of those drivers who we know can be very consistent when he's able to give himself a good space out on circuit, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to do. As we say hello to K2Xon in the chat, who's getting ready and commenting on the fact that the sausages at turns 3 and 4 are like rocket launch pads, and he suspects he'll see a lot of KTMs taken off. Indeed, we're probably going to see a lot of crossbows being shot into the sky. I mean the car, by the way, not the weapon, a crossbow. Nobody should be equipped with a crossbow whilst out on circuit, although that may make the racing a little bit more interesting, or odd, shall we say. But hopefully we will see our cars not bounce too high, and we'll come on about the sausage curbs at turns 3 and 4 in a short order, which K2 is referring to as we see H-Boss makes his way back into the pits, and we get to see the silhouette of a member of the stewarding team there at the pit lane, which I've never seen that before. That's an interesting little bit of a graphical glitch. But away from graphical glitches, we've still got some drivers to introduce. We shouldn't get carried away with looking around at our scenery. The Polish driver of Luke 666111, who we refer to as Luke, is in P10 currently on 19 points. Unfortunately, we are not going to be seeing Luke tonight. He's had to withdraw from tonight's round due to personal reasons, and we wish Luke all the best. But that means that he's not going to be accruing any points, and the drivers behind him most definitely will do. Starting off with this man right here, the British driver of Trousers of Doom in P11 at the moment on 14.5 points, and Trousers having a difficult night to contend with at Yamagiwa last week. 3 points in race number 1 for what was a, if I remember correctly, a 12th place finish, and then it was 4 points in race number 2 for what was an 11th place finish, so a slight improvement, and then a 10th place finish in race number 3. That's what's led to his points tally. A gradual improvement over the course of the evening, but Trousers knows there's a lot of work to do, and he's going to start the fight back here tonight at Dragon Trail Gardens. And he's only got 1.5 points between himself and the Turkish driver Zanay Ismail, the driver who was anticipated going into this season to be very strong in EU Division 2, but had a disastrous opening week last time out, where the fact only 13 points accrued for a last place finish in race number 1, 6 points in race number 2 for what was a 9th place finish, and then in race number 3 it went disastrously for him, an 11th place finish. And going into tonight he was beating himself up quite significantly, feeling that he just couldn't understand what was going wrong, why he'd picked up so many stewarding penalties. And to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, Zanay Ismail has picked up a sizable number of grid place penalties, so we will be seeing him drop down the order quite a bit over the course of tonight, but that will be in both qualifying, well I believe it will purely be in qualifying, unless anything else is mistaken here. But in qualifying, I believe wherever Zanay Ismail qualifies, deduct 6 places off of it, and that will be his actual qualifying position. But we look forward to seeing what the Turkish driver is able to do over the course of the evening. As we say hello to Luco33, who has heard a rumour that Elon Musk is scouting those curves for ideas for the next iteration of his Starship. Keep an eye out for him in the paddock. We definitely will do there, Luco. Thank you for that advice. We'll keep an eye out for the Dogecoin Meister as our drivers continue to make their way around, and of course Dogecoin right now having some very interesting moments in the crypto market, and Elon Musk. But that's beside the point. We come back to the racing once again, with Remon V being the next driver to be introduced, and that is the brother of Jerry R. Driver, and we can see that Remon right now making his way around the circuit, Radical Ramon. The Dutchman here getting it a little bit wrong into turn 10, the second part of the quadruple right-hander, and putting it into the wall. But the Dutchman on 10.5 points and joint on 10.5 at the back of the field, only ahead in 13th by count back on result. But Radical Ramon having a difficult debut last time out, albeit I think he'll be pleased with the fact that he was able to make it to the end and he kept the car together as best as he possibly could, as we are looking for Ramon. And there's the man right here. What with the fact that he finished with an 11th place finish in race number 1, a 13th place finish in race number 2, and then fought back to what was a 12th place finish in race number 3. And he'll be looking to try and creep into those top 10s tonight, we reckon. And last but not least of our drivers, who's currently out on circuit, is a Smithies, who's 14th on count back in competition with Ramon. Both of them on 10.5 points. Smithies having the worst evening of all of our drivers, having a lot of difficulty with the combination of the car and Yamagiwa last time out. And whilst he hasn't been enjoying the car, we do believe that he could be on course for a better set of results tonight, feeling a bit more comfortable with the circuit. To give you an idea though, last time out he picked up 6 points in race number 1 for what was a 9th place finish. He picked up 3 points in race number 2 for what was a 12th place finish, and then in race number 3 he only picked up 1.5 points for what was a last place finish of 14th. But that is the summary of all of our drivers in the Drivers' Championship. And as for the team standings, right now, team number 1, the combination of Peachy and Zanaismal. Peachy, of course, being here, and Zanaismal, his teammate here. These two in team number 1 leading on 62 points, but they are being chased down by team Albert Hain on what is, or Albert Hay, I should say, on 60 points. We're not going to butcher that pronunciation, hopefully, as they are the combination of K2 Zahn, who we find here, who's currently sat in the pits, and also a Jerry R driver, both of them being sat in the pits, in fact, with the like-for-like liveries on 60 points and chasing down team number 1 as rapidly as possible. It's very close between those two in the constructors, and do not rule out the team that are in P3 right now, as we're about to get our stock checks underway. We just had confirmation of that. So the first stock check is going to get underway, but we'll continue to introduce our constructors. Team number 6 in P3 right now on 53.5 points, as we'll just get through the sequence. So team number 6 on 53.5 points, so only 6.5 points down on P2, is the combination of Notnats and Golden Dagon. And we're going to hop over to Notnats, who'll be starting on the front row in P2 for this stock check, as you can see. And this will give you a feel as well as we get this stock check underway for what it's going to be like for our drivers running down into turn 1. And it's quite a long run down into turn 1 for these cars, and the even number drivers start on the left hand side, which is where you want to be for the sweeping left hander, where you want to try and go for a moderate apex, go as late as possible typically, so you can carry as much speed into the corner. But you can see Notnats getting the weaker start by comparison with Jerry R driving, and immediately tucking in behind as they all sweep into the corner here. Golden Dagon on the inside, but you could see that he lost the momentum versus K2 by being on that tighter line, so he wasn't able to take as much momentum into the apex of the corner as they all make their way down towards turn number 2. The triple chicane are bound for this one lap, and you can see HRL, Peachy and HBOS all side by side there, all trying to make sure they don't clip the sausage at turn 3, and in return, as a result of that, making it through safe and sound, and all of our drivers in fact making it through the triple chicane for the first time of asking in a very peaceful and happy order, although I suspect we're going to see a lot of battling now down into turn 5. The big wide open hairpin, so wide in fact you can actually go 5 wide into this hairpin if you so desire, and Golden Dagon, Ramon, K2 and HRL and Notnats all trying to do the 5 wide, almost getting in sequence there, and all of our drivers of course getting a feel for what it's going to be like breaking into these corners in succession, and also getting a feel for what it's like running alongside someone through these corners, as they all have to now settle down into an order through turn 6 through to 8 before they get into the quadruple right hander that is turn 9. So we now move from sector number 2 into sector number 3, and you can see all our drivers getting caught out running wide there out of turn 8, and if you go too far beyond that curb you get pulled off the curb into the gravel, you essentially fall off the circuit, as we see that Radical Ramon there makes his way back onto the circuit, having fallen off on entry into turn 9. As he makes his way out of the quadruple quarter here, they all charge up the hill now towards the final double hairpin, i.e. the double left apex corner, which is the combination of 13 and 14. All of them going up the hill. We can see that Jerry R drivers run away with this a little bit, but our drivers all experimenting with overtaking into this double left-hander. Radical Ramon getting pushed a little bit there, but it's going to be a case as they make their way out the corner here. Ramon goes wide again, but Rally crosses it back onto the circuit. Jerry R driver is going to lead our drivers home on this start check, ahead of K2, Golden Dagon P3, Peachy P4, HBoss P5, Ramon, HR, Notnats crossing in that sequence very close together, and then we could see that it was our Dutch Smithies, Trousers of Doom, Pingo Phone, Zernizmail, however, having a difficult time and just gradually creeping across the finish line right now. Probably just getting a feel for the circuit and getting himself warmed up. 13 drivers here tonight and all of them completed the start check successfully. That's great news. Congratulations, guys. So that is our first start check complete, and of course all of our drivers will be using the information they obtained tonight, particularly the launch off the start line in the run down towards turn 1, and also a feel for the battles they may have had into a number of corners, particularly turn 5 where there was a lot of battling, we saw that, and going all the way up into turn 13 we saw drivers going side by side to get a feel for what it's like braking on the inside when you're off that racing line. But whilst we've still got a little bit of time remaining, we've still got 10 minutes before we get underway with qualifying. Let's continue with that Constructors' Championship discussion. And as I was saying, before we get the start check underway, it's a combination of Golden Dagon, who we see here, the Dutchman, and Notnats, the British driver here, who are forming team number 6 on 53.5 points in P3 in the Constructors. And they're only ahead by half a point as we get a second start check underway, it should be pointed out, and that's team number 7 in P4, the combination of Pingo Phone and Trousers of Doom. And as we flip over to the grid, we'll jump on board with one of them. So as we pan down to the grid this time for our second start check, we'll see this time it's Notnats who leads us away on pole, K2 alongside him. But we're going to jump on board with Trousers of Doom, who starts in P12. To give you an idea of what it's like starting a bit further back down the order, we're just behind where he sat in the cockpit right now. We've got the camera mounted between the shoulder rests and the rear rests of the 2 seats in the vehicle. You can see those 5 red lights lighted up in the distance. Trousers having to react to those, and it's lights out and away he goes. Gets a reasonable launch here, but watch how the drivers around him will all try to concertina over to the right hand side where possible, the ones who've got the better launch. Smithy's defended a little bit to the inside. They're trying to narrow Trousers of Doom's run into the apex of turn 1, but you can see that Trousers of Doom able to use the space available to him there and get past Smithy's as they all make their way up in towards the triple chicane. Now the braking zone, a heavy braking zone for turn number 2 here, and as they make their way, and Trousers are going a little bit deep, and we can see that as a result Pingo coming in deep on the inside there, and as they make their way through turn 3 and turn 4, they have to go into a sequence effectively. You can't really go side by side through the triple chicane for more than turn 2 because otherwise you lose way too much momentum, particularly through 3 where you've got that switch back to the right before going into the left-hander of 4. You need to settle things down. But as we look back up towards the front right now, we can see Notnats going for the move on Golden Dagon here and using a very tight line. He's got to be careful with those tight lines because if he cuts too much of the apex curve at turn number 5, he can actually be exposed to a half-second penalty. It's very difficult to do if you take a really narrow line. The penalty system sometimes sees that as a corner cut, and as a result, Notnats may have been penalised, but he wasn't this time, as we see that K2 making his way away right now as Notnats is leading the train of drivers, all chasing after that P2 slot. K2 actually going very wide off of the curb there and getting it into the wall, so Notnats inherits the lead in the start check race, and they make their way through the quadruple right-hander. A lot of drivers getting it wrong there on cold sports soft tyres, and you can see as Notnats rejoins, it's now Golden Dagon who leads the field around out of the final set of quarters, and coming up to the very last hairpin they go, turns 13 and 14 away, and it looks as though Golden Dagon here might have a little bit on his stride now. He might have a feather in his cap and say, you know what, I'm getting a good feel for this circuit. I've had a very good second start check race, as we do see that Peachy gets knocked a little bit there by H-Boss, who waits for him accordingly and lets Peachy rejoin, and as they all come out the final corner then, it is going to be Golden Dagon who brings us across the line for the completion of our second start check, our second check. But nonetheless, we can see that they all make their way across the line, all safe and sound here, and the last driver across the line will be Smithies. Congratulations to all our drivers again for what was a successful start check. So that is start check number 2 complete. And as we flick over to our drivers once again, let's continue that constructors discussion. So with Pingo and Trousers of Doom, team number 7 in P4 by only half a point off of the P3 guys right now, it's then worth noting that team number 3 are only a point off of team number 7. It currently sat on 52 points. That is the combination of H-Boss and Smithies, with H-Boss putting in that huge effort last time out in terms of the results he gained, versus Smithies not having the best of nights. Smithies being here, of course, and looking to get some more solid points on the board, and then H-Boss sat behind right now. The two British drivers looking and raring to go to move up the order, and indeed they could by the end of tonight be in a position where they're up into P3 in the Constructors. And then we've only got 1.5 points down to team number 2, the combination of our Dutch, who I believe is at circuit. Yep, there is our Dutch right now, so we can introduce the Dutchman here as we see him making his way around through turn 1, and he is joined of course by Luke, who's not racing tonight. So team number 2 will be relying on our Dutch to get all the points on the board tonight, so they may lose out a little bit in the chase for P3, albeit that gap at the moment is only in the region of 3 points from P6 to P3 in the Constructors, but unfortunately, Team 2 will naturally lose a little bit more points by comparison with the teams around them, but our Dutch will do his best, no doubt. And then last but not least right now in the Constructors is team number 5 on 36.5 points. They're a little way off the order, but we'll be looking to fight their way back into the order over the course of tonight. That is HRL, the British driver here, and of course his teammate Remon, who is making his way around the circuit right now. Remon there with our Dutch chasing after him. So that is a summary of our Constructors Championship, and let's just quickly hop back to our Dutch, the one driver who we couldn't introduce at the time. And our Dutch, of course, being on what is 31.5 points in 5th place in the Drivers' Championship with a good evening to boot. Albeit not what you would have liked in the fact he came second in race number 1, but couldn't quite get back onto the podium for either of the other races, what with AP7 and AP6. But still, I'm saying my apologies, AP7 and also a P8 in the end, but we'll look forward to seeing what he's able to achieve. And with 5 minutes to go, that's our 2 start checks completed. And now we are waiting to go. So in the 5 minutes remaining, we are going to hop on board with one of our drivers who's making their way around the circuit right now onto another lap, and we'll take you through the circuit with an onboard. And today it will be brought to you by Radical Ramon. So as we make our way down into turn number 1, then you'll see he's going to go from the right side of the circuit, really hold late there and try to tuck it into the apex curve, but couldn't quite get it hooked up as much as he would have liked to. But Ramon now extends down into turn 2, a heavy braking zone here, coming down at the 100 board into 3rd gear and flowing into the left to right to left sequence, the triple chicane, avoiding riding that curve too much, and you can see you've got those raised brown red aspects of the curve there. Our drivers, if they want to use them, will need to literally place the wheels on either side of those curves, but Ramon going for the safer line there, which costs you about 1/10 to 2 tenths overall by comparison with driving nails it. But coming down to the hairpin, turn 5, braking at that 100 board, stamping it down through the gears, in fact going a little bit deep there. Probably wants to look at braking at about 120 metres in the race and in qualifying, but he still gets it hooked up on exit from the hairpin, and now running up the hill, going into the left hander that is turn 6, and it's again a sweeping sequence here of left into right into left, a lovely flying set here. You'll see that he's just balancing the throttle as he goes through at turn number 7, and then balances the throttle a little bit, but goes a bit too far there into turn 8. And does the right thing to recover there out of turn 8, just lifts off the throttle and brings it back onto the curb, and out into the quadruple right-hander, turn 9, turn 10. And then you've got turn 11, and now as you make turn 11, you can start to get that throttle really planted, and you go through 12 and now charge all the way down one of the longest straights here, almost as long as the start-finish straight, almost as long as the run from turn 4 to turn 5, and now running all the way down towards turn 13 he goes, braking hard here at the 100 board, and as he makes his way into 13, you'll see he'll clip the curb there, and he'll try and get the car turned around as quickly as possible for 14, and now makes his way out the final corner to charge towards the start-finish line, staying over to the right for the qualifying line, but if you're going defensive, you want to start gradually weaving over to the left and then back to the right if the driver's not close enough to go for a move. But thank you, Ramon, for that tour lap there of the circuit, and we hope you're able to achieve something special tonight and continue to keep those results on coming as he makes his way around the circuit once again. But the thing about this circuit is that it puts a challenge on the driver in terms of a number of drivers may be used to the fact they can deal with handling circuits when they've got a number of corners that are spaced out, but here the corners come quick, they come fast, and you've got a lot of switchbacks here. You've got a lot of lefts into rights, rights into lefts, and it's a case about balancing your throttle and balancing the momentum of the car. And what with these vehicles being mid-engine rear-wheel drive, our drivers will feel that challenge of the rear end of the car sliding under turning, because you've got all the weight distributed to the back of the car, and these are very light pieces of machinery. Do keep that in mind. We're looking at well under a ton here for the KTM crossbow machinery, and as a result of that, this car is going to feel very agile, but at the same time, get it wrong, and when that weight transfer occurs, the car is going to slide quite horrifically through the corners and catch the driver out. Now, in terms of pole here, we are expecting, given the fact that we saw 44s up towards the top end of EU Division 1, I believe we even saw a 43 at one point, we are going to be looking for 45s in the course of qualifying tonight. HRL right now having set a 46.1 in this final practice session before we get underway, but we are expecting pole to be somewhere in the mid region of the 45s, probably somewhere around a 45.4. Perhaps drivers can get into the low 45s, or perhaps we may even see a 44, but never say never. We'll wait and find out. But we are just waiting to get underway with qualifying. We've got 1 minute to go, and really now start placing your bets. What do you think is going to be the story of qualifying? Personally, for me, I think the man who is currently leading the championship and indeed has shown the strongest pace of anybody will have that title going to him, in terms of everybody will be looking at Picciola, they'll be looking at the Estonian and thinking he's going to be the man on pole, and I suspect we are definitely going to see him fighting for that front row of the grid. However, we do have a number of drivers who have proven they've got a lot of pace on tap, they just need to nail it. And to give you examples, we have our Dutch with that 45.5 as we make the time of day change, and that means we are moving into qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. Qualifying is about to get underway as all of our drivers reload the lobby, and then it is go, 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 12 minutes. Who is going to be on pole by the end of it? Let's find out. So as we're waiting for all of our drivers to start piling their way out the pits, we can see that it's going to be Notnats who is going to be our first driver out of the pits and onto the Croatian circuit. And really here, our drivers are expected to give one another space. It is the standard rule within GTSRL. You cannot qualify with the intention of using a tow. Of course, if a driver ahead of you makes a mistake and then naturally gives you the tow over the course of the race, well, unless you try to manufacture that with your teammate, which is quite obvious when you try to do it, examples where you might accidentally get tow, they'll be excluded because it won't matter to your lap time too much. But tow here at Dragon Trail Gardens is relatively effective, but it's only effective really in certain sequences. Sector 2 and Sector 3 are where you can gain a lot from a tow, but having a tow into the triple chicane of turns 2 through to 4 can be very risky. And so our drivers here, I think, will want to get around as quickly as possible. They want to get as much heat in the tyres, because once they go around onto their first flying lap, they're going to know the difference between if they haven't got the heat in their tyres and if they have, because the car is going to feel very different, particularly in Sector 2, where you've got the sweeping left into right combination of turns 6 through to 8, and also the amount of grip that will be available to the driver when they go through the quadruple right-hander of 9 into 12. Now, one thing to note as well as we watch Notnats going around, keep an eye on the curbs here, particularly the entry curbs into corners. What you're going to notice about them is that they are raised, and they're very similar, in fact, to the curbs that we saw at Yamagiwa last week in Kyoto Driving Park, in the fact that these curbs raise away from the circuit, and if they're quite low to the circuit, raise away, and then they fall off really sharply from the circuit. And again, our drivers will know not to use too much curb, or there'll be certain corners where they can exploit the curb, because if they use too much, they will fall off the circuit and into the gravel or the grass. Without further ado then, we jump on board with Notnats, which for what is going to be our first flying lap of the qualifying session, as we say hello to SRanch92 in the chat, who does not enjoy the curbs around here. I believe SRanch racing in NA Division 1 last night. But as Notnats makes his way into turn 1, drifting the car into the opening corner there, and actually making up for the fact he missed the apex of the corner by simply drifting close to the apex, breaking into turn 2 here, and it looks like Notnats has gone for a setup on the car where the car is going to slide a little bit, so probably opening the brake balance towards the rear of the vehicle, although he does go very slowly through turn 2. They're not feeling confident to go through it in third gear, using second gear, and that will have cost him some time, but nonetheless he presses on, having had a clean run through sector 1 and now down towards sector number 2. We'd expect 31s for sector 1 as a minimum to be towards the front of the field here. As he goes into turn 5, you can see really coming down on the brakes, and again trail braking in, and what Notnats is trying to do there effectively is trying to release the rear of the car, so that way he's got a little bit of brake input, but the rear of the car slides around. That weight transfer we talked about being triggered nice and early through the apex of the hairpin, and that gave him a lot of momentum through turn 5, and through turn 6 and 7 he goes and uses it again in turn 7. What will he do in 8? Will he try it again? He uses a downshift there to trigger the reverse of the car, the rear of the car coming out, and now coming down into 9 through to 12 he goes, and he'll want to slide the car through here, and I suspect what he's going to try and do is get on that power as soon as he goes through the apex of 10, and he lifts off a little bit there for 11.9. The car's going to go wide, goes almost off there, keeps 2 wheels of the circuit, so it won't cost him as much time as it could have, and now he charges all the way down to the final 2 corners, 13 and 14 away. He goes charging down towards the braking zone here at that 100 meter board, or just before it really, where the barrier changes colour to orange, and as he goes through here, you'll see that he's going to try and turn that nose in before he gets on the power fully, and he builds up that throttle very sharply, and that is the completion of the lap there by Notnats. Not too bad of a lap. I think he's got a lot of time to unleash it in sector 1 still, if he can find it, but as he makes his way across the line, a 46.7, a good opening lap from Notnats, as we see that already a 45.6 from Ardutch, and K2 responding with a 45.1 there. K2 really pushing the boundaries early on and looking for those 44s if he can find them, as HBoss and HRL come across the line. HBoss with a 46.4, and we see that HRL with a 46.3. So a number of drives already into those 46s, as Pingo comes across the line here, having not had a good opening qualifying lap. This is a 53.7, so that's not indicative of their pace, we reckon. Jerry R driver as well having a slow opening flying lap. Radical Ramon, meanwhile, as he comes across the line here, does jump up to P5 with a 46.5. A good lap from the Dutchman, and definitely find himself into the midfield with that one early on. And as we look further down, we can see Jerry R driver, of course, we're now going for his opening flying lap. A Smithies setting a 46.9, and well, not A Smithies, sorry, Trouser doing with a 46.9, and then we can see Smithies by comparison with a 47.8. The crossbow there making his way down into turn number 2 for the 3rd time of asking, and Smithies, knowing that he's probably got a little bit more pace on the table, he just needs to deploy it, as meanwhile Zanayasmel making his way now with a 49.4. So a number of drivers opting not to put in a solid lap immediately, and instead going a little bit longer and trying to burn some more fuel and get the tyres warmed up and give themselves some space out on circuit, I would imagine. But right now, right at the back, we've got Golden Dagon, who is doing the fuel burning strategy. So the only driver here to opt to go for heavy fuel burning immediately in the qualifying session. So keep an eye out for the Dutchman, because he did pull a surprise on us at Yamagiwa last week by taking pole right at the last moment with the fuel burning strategy, and we suspect he'll do that again tonight. And fuel burning can be invaluable here, given the fact we have got some quite long straights and long acceleration zones. As we do see Notnats comes into the pits to put on a fresh pair of tyres, and as they make their way all the way down the line once again, we're going to see that K2, does he improve? He does not improve, nor does our Dutch, in fact. And what about Peachy? Well, Peachy is on a flyer right now, on the best of the best so far, going around the circuit after 2 sectors. 1 more sector to go here, and you can see that Peachy is revving the engine out, trying to burn as much fuel as possible whilst going for those upshifts, and going into the final 2 corners they go. Do they nail it into turn 13? A tiny bit wide of apex there, but gets it collected very nicely. And you can see how quickly they're turning that front end in, as Pingo Phone goes provisional P4 right now with what is a 46.0. But as Peachy comes across the line, where's this going to be? It's going to be a fast lap. It's a 44.9. We've got our first 44, and Peachy sets the provisional pole bar even higher right now. How will everyone respond? We suspect that K2 and R-Dutch will definitely be trying to get into those 44s, but Pingo, it should be noted, with that 46.0 there, doing a good job of moving up to provisional P5 as they cut a little bit too much there of turn number 3, and that's what led to the half-second penalty. HRL not improving on their previous lap, going for another lap right now, and HBoss meanwhile down in P6, but of course remember, this is the driver who, despite not qualifying too well by comparison with those around him in round number 1 last week, found his way into the races and built up a lot of pace as we went deeper into the race evening. So whatever HBoss does tonight, do keep in mind that's his qualifying pace, not necessarily his race pace, which we suspect will be a little bit stronger over the course of the distance. But as he makes his way out of the quadruple right-hander, he makes his way now down towards turn 13 and 14, absolutely revving it out, of course taking a very gentle move over to the right here, trying to keep it as straight as possible before coming into that braking zone, stamping on the brakes now about 115 metres from the corner, and as he goes through, they're going a little bit deep into the hairpin, in fact, but he gets it gathered and goes for a very tight cut-in line there through turn 14, and you can see as a result that will give him the slingshot out the corner, but he does get a little bit of wheel spin coming off the exit curve there. A little bit unnatural to see that, but still this is looking a reasonable lap, and it's a 45.5, putting in provisional P3, so a good lap there from HBoss, started to get it together, and will he be able to get himself onto that front row, or at least hold on to a position on the second row of the grid? And as we continue to look around, we can see that our Dutch here given a little bit of space to the drivers behind, although we have had someone get it very wrong ahead of our Dutch. We're not sure what happened there. It looks like Notnats may have just tripped over the curb there at turn 1. Perhaps there was a little bit of a moment there where they didn't know whether it's going to be the case that the Dutchman was going to be completely clear, but nonetheless, Notnats continues on as our Dutch follows behind him. I think it's all been forgiven and cleared right now, as our drivers have only got 4 minutes to go. We've got 1/3 of this qualifying session to go, and Pete Giurla has that bar high right now, going for that tyre change. As we look further down the order, we can see that Trouser Doom has improved a little bit up into P7. Their most recent lap, in fact, setting them up for P7 with a 46.2. But we do have quite a sizable gap starting to appear between our front runners, as we see that A. Smithy's setting a 45.9. In fact, so Smithy's really coming to life in round number 2 here in qualifying, with the fact that round number 1 definitely didn't suit in the car and track combination. But tonight, whilst the car may not suit him, he's definitely flying. He's 2 tenths faster already in Sector 1. We're going to stay with the British driver here, and we're going to ride on board with him as he makes his way into the hairpin, going for a very aggressive line into the hairpin and not choosing to downshift to second there, staying in third instead. Now we're wondering whether perhaps he's got a little bit of an idea in mind, i.e. third gear perhaps might be a little bit stronger on the acceleration out of the turn 5 hairpin than second gear, in terms of you get rid of one of those unnecessary downshifts. But he's sliding his way up the hill right now, and as he comes to the end of Sector 2, he was 2 tenths ahead of his previous best in Sector 1. How will he have improved? He's improved by a further 3 tenths, so this is looking at a very strong lap from the British driver, and you can only imagine right now, given the fact that the gap between himself and our Dutch are provisional P4, why I say that, and all of a sudden HRL literally comes out of nowhere. We will cover that in a second for you, but staying with Smithies right now, this could be a good enough lap to get him ahead of our Dutch provisionally, and perhaps put a bit of pressure on the H-Boss right now. We're looking at the moment at approximately what would be a 45.4, but as he makes his way through the hairpin, just gets a little bit hesitant there on the power going out the second part of the hairpin. But it's been a very good lap from Smithies, and let's wait and see what he's able to achieve as he comes across the line here. It is going to be a 45.5, so he lost a little bit in the final sector, but that moves him up to provisional P4. A good lap there, only 100th ahead of H-Boss, as then Trouser Doom immediately responds with a 45.4. So we've got a lot of drivers pushing into those mid-45s, and the question is, who is going to be joining Peachy in the 44s? Well, we can see that HRL missing out on the 44s by only 6 thousandths of a second. HRL, the next one to try and break into the 44s right now, as he's making his way through Sector 2. This is not an improvement in this sector by looks of things, although we'll wait and see until he gets across that timing line there. And in fact, no, he has had a disastrous lap. He's going to have one more lap to try and pip Pete Giurla to pole. But we will wait and see, as we can see that K2 as well on a fly. He is flashing his lights. He is 2 tenths faster than Peachy right now, and he's flashing his lights at Notnats to essentially say, I'm on a flyer here, please get out of my way. But of course, Notnats will probably be thinking right now, no, I'm not going to get out of the way, as K2 goes a little bit wide there out of 11, but he collects it together. But of course, right now, it's not a good situation for K2 to be in the fact he will have lost some time by running wide. How much he will have lost? It would have been at least 1.5 tenths, as Golden Dragon takes provisional pole with a 44.6. Well, we knew he was going to hide something up his sleeve, and he's definitely done it again. And what can K2 respond with here? Because remember, he was 2 tenths up on Pete Giurla, but still he'd need to find a couple more attempts to pip Golden Dragon to pole right now. And it is going to be a 44.9, which puts him just a little bit off of Peachy there. And I think K2 will be regretting the fact that he got it wrong through turn 11. But Dragon flying and flying again as he comes across the line here for Sector 1. You can see, no, he's not improving in fact. So Golden Dragon, I think, has saved it all for one lap, and he's delivered it, and he's going around one last time to see if he can improve. As all of our drivers are now coming to the end of their qualifying session, Pete Giurla will get one more lap in, as we do see that Trouser Doom right now in P5 making his way across the line as well. So who's going to be our first driver to finish their qualified session? As we take a little bit of a look around here, we are just going to try and find that individual for you, as we see somebody has come into the pits. And as we look around here, I believe our first driver then, who is going to be finishing their qualifying session, as we see Pingo Phone spinning, in fact, getting it very wrong in the run down to turn 5. Not sure what happened there, but we see that we get the announcement that everybody is expected to finish the lap. Jerry R driver popping into the pits there, and we haven't got a lap time for Jerry R driver, so we can't tell you where he has actually qualified as a result, unfortunately. We'll find that out a little bit later, but we can see Golden Dragon on another personal best, so we're going to stay with Golden because we can't find who's coming out the final corner right now. What is Golden Dragon going to raise the bar to coming into this lap? If he's going to raise it again, this is going to be something. It's going to be, as he rides a little bit too much of the curb at 14 there, he almost loses the car, but just settles it down enough. But what is this going to be? Is it going to be an improvement? Is it going to be a 44.5? It's a 44.524, and that is 4 tenths clear of anybody else so far. And as we look around here, nobody is improving by that margin. I think Dagon has done it. Or sorry, not Dagon, Dagon, my goodness. I've just remembered that's how I meant to say his username. It's Golden Dagon who set that time, and that is absolutely phenomenal. As we see all of our drivers now making their way through to complete the laps, we can see that we've got Peachy and K2 running around in the reverse order. K2 ahead of Peachy as they go up into the hairpin. As they come all the way in, I don't think it's going to be an improvement from either of them, as we see Trouser Doom also in the mix there. As they come through the final quarter, can anybody jump up the field? Trousers are not on an improving lap by the looks of things. And as he comes across the line, it is going to be a 46. That is not an improvement. And Peachy not improving either here. So as a result, we have got most of our drivers across the line. Our Dutch coming across the line right now, not to improve, unfortunately. But that is it for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Although we do have one driver still going around. We're just trying to find out who that is. Is it Ramon? No, it's not. But they are coming out of that final quarter. And they've just come across the line. I think it was Zanai's Mal coming across the line and not improving. So that is qualifying complete. Golden Dagon takes home pole position for race number 1. Well done to Dagon with a 44.5. That is a phenomenal lap there from the Dutchman. 4 tenths clear of anybody else. He will be joined on the front row by the Estonian of Peachy with that 44.9. Started off our second row will be the Dutchman of K2, who only missed out on the front row by 15 thousandths of a second. That's how close it was in the hunt for the front row, as it was for HRL, who will be joining him in P4 with that 45.006. Only 6 thousandths off of a 44, and indeed only 500ths off of P3. Trouser Doom then, almost half a second back, starting off our third row in P5. He'll be joined by a Smithies in P6, who was only a 10th off of Trouser Doom, and then the 2 Brits line up on your third row. Then you've got HBoss GT starting off our fourth row in P7, and alongside him will be R Dutch. And look how close it was for HBoss to get himself onto that third row and to hold on to that P7. Only a 100th of a second ahead of him and only 400ths behind him. And behind him is R Dutch. The Dutchman will be starting in P8. Pingo Phone will be in P9 with that 46.0. Not the best of qualifying sessions for the Austrian, just not able to hook it together as much as he would have liked. But still, he'll be pleased with the fact that he was able to put a good lap together, and he's half a second down on R Dutch, and he'll be joined by Not Natch GT, who'll be starting off that he'll be finishing off that fifth row, we should say, with a 46.1. Our sixth row then will be started off by the Turkish driver Zanai Ismail, who, due to qualifying penalties, grid place penalties brought together from round number 1, will be starting right at the back of the field. So that means Radical Ramon, in fact, will be starting off our sixth row, and it will be Jerry R driver, who we're not sure where he fits into this pack. We're going to wait and find out. But that is your qualifying order, effectively, ladies and gentlemen. And now the pressure will be on this man right here, Golden Dagon. What can he do over the course of the racing tonight? Can he run away with the points here? Because he clearly does have an advantage in qualifying, but he did a lot of fuel burning in the race. That fuel burning isn't as applicable, and as a result, it'll be coming down to 1 lap pace in very equal machinery in terms of fuel loads. As we say hello to Spinky Bouton in the chat as well. And we've also got Peachy Erler in here, who's saying that second place in qualifying on a track he's not good at. Not bad at all. The Estonian, I think, is very proud of that. And why shouldn't he be? That was a very good lap to get himself on the front row. Even more so given the fact this is not a track that he's not comfortable with in terms of being good at it or feeling that he's good at the circuit. But we're going to wait for our drivers to ready up right now, and then we are go for race number 1. And I believe we also have a 3-place grid place penalty for K2XR. So that's going to really change up our order here in terms of who is going to be right towards the front. As our drivers make their way out onto the paddock, if not out onto the circuit, then we're going to be expecting our 13 drivers to ready up. The grid will be set, and then race 1 will be coming at you within the next couple of minutes. You do have to wonder what Team Albert Hay can do in terms of the racing tonight. The 2 Dutchmen, let's see what they're able to achieve. And K2 with that grid place penalty, if that is correct as we understand it, well, he'll be looking to do as much as he can. As race number 1 is about to get underway. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The countdown is about to commence. Any second now, I'm hearing word in my ear. There's the countdown, ladies and gentlemen. We are go for race 1. We're going to be taking a trip around the gardens, and who by the end of it will come out on top? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid and say hello to Tenured Frog in the chat, we can see that Golden Dagon on pole on the left-hand side and Peachiola on the right-hand side. But watch out for K2, who with that grid place penalty starts in P5 instead. The Dutchman will be looking to make his way up the order very quickly to chase after our leaders. It's 5 red lights. Ace Smithy's jumping the start. And it's lights out and away we go, but Smithies will be held there temporarily, so Smithies getting a little bit too excited on the loud pedal there, and as a result, all of our drivers get away. Nobody getting caught up in a collision there with Smithies as they make their way down into turn 1, and we can see that Golden Dagon having the perfect start by comparison with Peachy, who immediately had to go defensive versus Trousers of Doom. K2 having jumped up to P3, he's on the inside versus Trousers into turn 2 here, and as they all come into the braking zone, we can see that Trousers trying to hang around the outside, but cost himself the momentum of going deep, which means now H-Boss is trying to find his way into P4. A little bit of contact there, but H-Boss backs out of it immediately, knowing it was a closing door. It was never going to happen. He drops down to P6 as a result of that. As we can see that HRL has now moved back into P5, and R-Dutch, meanwhile, under pressure from H-Boss and Pingophone. We've got a 3-wide situation occurring down into turn 5 here, as we can see that R-Dutch leading and going defensive on the right-hand side of the circuit from his perspective, and hold on to that P6 as HRL's gone very deep. In fact, R-Dutch has as well. HRL just going very, very deep, and we can see we've got 4 drivers all contesting what is the space for P5 out in the race, and it is R-Dutch who's going to emerge from turn 5 victorious out of all those drivers as they all make their way through 6, 7 and 8 and now have to settle down into some sort of order. But meanwhile we can see that HRL really struggling this early in the race, and Zanizmal with a lot of grip there for the left-hander of 8, just simply running it up the inside of the drivers around him. And we can see behind Radical Ramon has moved up into P8 as they go through turn 9. A little bit of contact between HRL and Ramon, and Jerry Ardrive tries to squeeze into the mix there. It's going to be very close to tears if they don't settle it down and give one another the space as Ardrive backs out of it, and Notnats is into the wall there. I'm not sure if there was contact. We see Ace Smithies up into P12 now, having recovered from that disastrous start by jumping the start. But as they make their way up into the hairpin now, will we see any more moves? We see Zanizmal into the wall. It's Zanizmal. That's a disaster. Radical Ramon goes very deep. A lot of drivers being caught out by the cold tyre compound here. I'm not sure if there was contact on Zanizmal, but as they go to the end of lap number 1, it's Golden Dagon in the lead, followed by Peachiola, and then K2XR, followed by Trousers of Doom, R-Dutch in P5, Pingophone in P6, Radical Ramon in P7, with HRL and Jerry R driver going to town on one another, P8 and P9 respectively. In P10 right now, it's Ace Smithies who's battling with H-Boss. H-Boss getting on the inside of the British driver there as they both make their way down into turn 2. And now as they come into the braking zone here, which one of them is going to be braver on the brakes? Will it be Smithies? Will it be H-Boss? When the end, H-Boss tucks in for the lead here and holds on. Smithies watches on from behind right now, but it's definitely following these fellow countrymen around the circuit and trying to use that momentum from the slipstream. As we look back up front, we can see that Peachiola has got the move done on Golden Dagon. He has made his way up into P1. We'll see where that happens very shortly, but Dagon go for the move up the inside into turn 5 there. But I think these guys, our top 3, are not trying to fight too hard right now, and they're trying to trade places because they recognise the fact they are starting to break away a little bit from the drivers behind. But as we ride on board with Golden Dagon, to give you an idea of what it's like running this close to 2 drivers ahead, you can see just how he's got to nurse the car through these corners, because that dirty air of K2 and Peachy combined means that he's understeering on turn into these corners, and these cars do not like understeer. They love to rotate, as K2 shows there, and Golden Dagon right now just simply having a difficult time getting the car rotated and really having to battle at the steering wheel and almost losing it there through turn 11. He's not having a good time in that dirty air, and he will want to get ahead of these two as he goes deeper into this race. He will want to get back up close behind and then simply make a pass on both of them and try to break away, because that seems to be where he's most comfortable when he's got clear air in front of him. As we see K2 and Peachy going side by side into 13. Peachy going a bit deep there, and K2 getting alongside into 14. A little bit of contact, but K2 has emerged ahead, and Peachy immediately tucks in behind as they move on to lap number 3. And we are hearing it's all kicking off behind as well, as we see that R-Dutch right now in P6 is breaking away a little bit for Radical Ramon. And meanwhile, back up front, K2, Peachy and Golden Dagon all make their way into turn 1 once again, and K2 hold on for the time being and pulling a little bit of momentum over the drivers behind him right now. But meanwhile, we can see that our battles for P4, 5 and 6 are spaced out a little bit, and Radical Ramon is also getting into a little bit of a no man's land. So P4 through to P7 are quite quiet right now, and really the closest action of the circuit bar our leaders is HRL battling with Smithies into turn 2, but Smithies holding that inside line. HRL going for the cutback here, but who's going to emerge on the apex of the corner? It is Smithies who places it very well, and HRL knew, I think, in the air that he wasn't going to have the rub through the corner versus Smithies. It would have been very dangerous to try and hang it around the outside on what is a very tight apex, and as a result, he backed out of it. But meanwhile, ahead of them, Jerry R. driver the Dutchman under a lot of pressure from H-Boss GT right now, as we see Smithies going for the move there on his fellow countryman. He went up the inside quite late, and that's what turn 5 does lend itself to. It's a very big corner, so as a result, you can really go for those moves, as we see Smithies and H-Boss going side by side, contact between the two of them, and Smithies backing out of it before going into turn 6. They're recognising that H-Boss was on the inside line, and Smithies would have tried to hung it through a corner where I don't think he would have been able to do it, as we do see, in fact, the Golden Dagon has dropped down the order here. What has happened? Charles is doing up into P3. So wherever it's happened out of the hairpin by looks of it, because Dagan had lost out. I think Dagan must have gone very deep into turn 5, because we didn't catch that on camera. It wasn't a pass out on circuit, as we see that Dagan dropping even further down the order. In fact, something has gone very wrong for the Dutch driver. It's not working out. He's down into P7 right now. I think there's some technical issues or something going wrong, because it is not working out for Dagan at all. He is dropping down the order like a fly, and as a result, we can see that now we've got Trouser Do up into P3, who I think will be absolutely jumping up and down in his riding seat right now in terms of the fact he's on the podium position. He's provisionally there, of course, assuming he can hold on to it for 3 more laps. He's only got 3 more laps to go. And Pingo Phone, remember, Pingo qualified all the way down the order, and the Austrian is all the way up into P4. Doing a fantastic job as Pingo as they make their way down into turn 2 once again. But they have got R Dutch behind them, of course, and R Dutch will not want to let a sniffer podium creep away as Charles of Doom has made a major error. Pingo Phone gets caught up behind that error, and you can see as a result these two are drag racing one another down towards turn number 5. Charles of Doom getting the momentum back together, but Pingo losing all that momentum. As we look back from the car of Trousers, we can see that Pingo Phone having to hold to the centre of the circuit, trying to make R Dutch go the long way round here, tightening that apex line, and Pingo losing so much momentum with all of that. And I think Pingo was hoping to capitalise to go for P3. Instead, it's fallen away. It's now a battle for P4 as Trousers is given the opportunity to break away once again. And we can see, meanwhile, as we jump back from Pingo Phone's car, you're riding with the Austrian right now, that you've got Radical Ramon and also Dagan, who are both trying to chase after the Austrian driver. We've got the Dutch army chasing after him, 3 Dutchmen all hunting down the Austrian, and you do have to wonder at this point, will R Dutch try and seize a move at an awkward position out on track? He was looking on the inside there for turn 9, but I don't think he was ever going to have a chance of getting it, as Pingo goes very wide there out of turn 11. Doesn't lose too much momentum, but Pingo's got to be very careful with that, because if he goes too wide, he's going to end up picking up the marbles, and that's going to send the car into the inside wall coming out of 12. But as they make their way up into turn 13, we can see that R Dutch on a move with Radical Ramon trying to go around the outside and then go for the cutback, but Ramon clips the rear of R Dutch's car, but it doesn't matter. He still has the momentum versus R Dutch. R Dutch is pushed a little bit wide there, but I think that's a racing instant, and Ramon is up into P5 with a very nice cutback move, and this sequence continues. And Dagan now tries to chase after R Dutch. R Dutch started to lose some momentum, but we can see that ahead that Trousers has not had the best of laps as R Dutch goes defensive into turn 1, and that's going to cost him a lot of momentum on exit here versus Dagan, who just takes the racing line, takes the sweep. And as they go into turn 2 here, what will R Dutch do? He looks for a potential move on Raymond. He tries to make the Dutchman ahead of him make a mistake, but Trouser are doing right now becoming a cork in the bottom, and Pingo losing so much grip there because he hasn't got the speed. He's having to lift off by looks of things as Trouser is having a difficult time through the triple chicane, and as a result of that, Pingo had to lift out, and he lost the power that was keeping the rear end of the car planted to the ground. These cars are so light, as I said earlier, and Pingo's going to go for the move. He's going to be as light as a feather and look for the move on the inside. Trouser Doom, but breaks too early, and Radical Ramon tries to sweep it around the outside here. If this works, it is going to be a fantastic move from Ramon, but Pingo is on the inside to cover it immediately as they can't through turn 6. Pingo on the inside, Radical Ramon on the outside. They go into the switchback, and we can see, oh goodness me, R Dutch goes spinning off the circuit there. Ramon has gained the position. That was very brave from Raymond to hold onto the inside for turn 7, starting on the outside of turn 6. You love to see it. That man has got balls of steel, and he's made it work as he makes his way through the quadruple right-hander right now, and they continue on to the straight run down towards turn number 13 for the 5th time of asking. But let's take a look back at what happened to our Dutch driver there, and that was absolutely horrific. So we're going to jump on board here with R Dutch and look forward from his car to give you an idea of what he will have seen and the potential mistake that would have been made there. So as he came out of turn 5, what you're going to see is he gets caught up in the concertina effect here of Ramon and Pingo battling. But he's on the outside here and he just gets it wrong. The car snaps behind the rear, just snap oversteers, and that's how he lost it. So that's why R Dutch is down the order. And I should point out that Picciola and K2 are battling for the race lead on the final lap. It's a good thing we've hopped back when we did, because K2, we can see, has got back past Picciola. Both drivers having similar amounts of momentum, and they're literally going for cutbacks on one another. Peachy and K2 side by side through turn 4 here, but Peachy, I think, went a little too early with that attempt, and now it's going to be K2 who has the momentum all the way down to the hairpin, and this will be the prime opportunity to overtake if he is close enough, the Estonian. But look how far back he has fallen back compared to K2 right now as they come into the braking zone here. Peachy is going to have to do it most likely into turn 13 or in the drag race down to the finish line as K2 goes very sideways and just catches the car. Peachy nails it, but he's been squeezed a little bit wide there as they go up into turn 6. Now, can Peachy hold it around the outside? He does. Can he hold it on the inside for 7? He does, and that is the move for the lead right now. But will K2 find a way back, or has the Estonian finally got it? He goes very deep into turn 8. Too much momentum, and K2's back into the lead. Neither driver wants to break away, and K2 picks up a half-second penalty for a cut on turn 8, which he's burnt a sizable chunk of it already. I think the stewards are going to be frowning on that one, because effectively that penalty could have potentially given Peachy the win, but we'll find out afterwards. The stewards will be investigating that. We're not here to do that, but you can see right now that Peachy chasing after K2, and I don't think he's going to have the move on this time unless K2 makes a mistake in the final corner. And as they go into 13 and 14 here, you can see that Peachy not able to capitalise anymore. So coming across the line as they sweep out the final corner, it is going to be the Dutchman of K2 who comes across the line with the win, but it may be subject to a steward's decision. He picks up the win out on circuit. Peachy comes home in P2, and P3 goes to a fantastic pair of trousers called Trouser of Doom. Hold on to that podium. Pingo in P4. Ramon and H Ross in the drag race line. Ramon holds on. Jerry R driver P7. Smithy's P8. HRL P9. Not Nat's P10. As he comes down to the finish line here, he'll be happy with a top 10 finish in this one, given everything that happened. Zanaya's out in P11. R Dutch will come home in P12, and then Golden Dagan. How it's been such a difficult race for two Dutchmen. Dagan coming home in P13. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, on circuit at least, K2 from the Netherlands. That is race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and as we save the replay and then we take a look at the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course, K2 are picking up the win there, 6 tenths ahead of Picciola, the Estonian, fighting very hard for that P2 out on circuit, but not able to get it out on track. Trousers of Doom rounding off our podium, what I suspect will be a little bit of a joyful podium for Trousers, given the fact he kept his head together, whereas everybody else around him seemed to not, finishing at 5.9 seconds off of our leader. Pingo Phone with the P4, not able to challenge for the podium in race number 1, and Radical Ramon picking up a 5th place, the second of the two brothers there, with Jerry R driver being his older brother, well, perhaps not his older brother, but the lead brother and the older one within a GTSRL. Well, I think Ramon's going to be very happy with that P5, and I think Jerry's going to be pleased for his brother as well. The fastest lap going to K2 on lap number 3 at 44.695. And goodness me, what a brilliant opener to tonight in EU Division 2. And we've still got 2 more races to go. We've got plenty more racing action to come. And I think one thing we can definitely take away from race number 1 is that these cars are not easy to race when they're around one another. We have seen a number of drivers experience snap oversteer as they're going through corners, because effectively what was happening to the car was that as they've had to lift off the power, because they were too close to the driver in front, as they lift off the power, the rear end just completely gives way. It's literally them keeping their throttle down, which is keeping the rear of the car planted to the floor, and that's what was catching them out. But still, it was a good opening race, and we've got plenty more to come tonight. As we're waiting to get underway with race number 2. I think we have had a couple of drivers crash out of the lobby, particularly Ramon. But we should get Ramon back in a very short order, and we'll be ready to go racing once again in a short while. But that dirty air was really punishing some drivers there. As we say hello to Robert Dimikiro, and also, well, it's additionally Robert who's joined the chat quite recently. And feel free to give your thoughts on what happened towards the end there with K2 and Peachy. As I say, I'm not going to give a yes/no in terms of either way, but I definitely think there is going to be a little bit of an investigation about that, given the fact that the penalty was burned before, well, effectively Peachy could gain from the penalty being burned. But we will wait and see. It's for after the racing. We're not here to talk about the penalties. We're here to focus on the racing. But the dirty air was impacting a lot of drivers, definitely Luco, particularly as Peachy has pointed out in Sector 2 when you've got those switchback corners, and also in the triple chicane of Sector 1. Sector 2 being what Notnats is racing through right now, of course, that dirty air just catching the drivers out, and the understeer some of our drivers were experiencing as they went into the corners. And particularly on tunes like Notnats, as you can see, he has set that car up with its brake balance towards the rear to try and get that rear end just to slide all the time. And you can imagine in the dirty air, that rear end isn't going to slide as much, and so Notnats will be feeling as he goes into the corners, well, where's all my rear end rotation? It's just gone. And a number of drivers were caught out by that, and I think that's why they ended up understeering off circuit. On top of that, on lap number 1 in particular, we did see a lot of drivers being caught out by cold tyres as well. But we will wait and see, of course, and all that information goes into the minds of our drivers as they move into race number 2. They'll have that information in their minds, and then they'll keep on pushing. But we have definitely got a big showdown right now for the win between Peachy and K2 tonight. We saw that in race number 1, and we're going to get the resumption of that in race number 2, I feel. And I think for a good part of it, again, they'll not want to fight one another too heavily at the start unless one of them sees that there's a driver in P3 or P4 who's very close to them, and if they're leading, say if K2 holds onto the lead going into turn 2, they might try and hold Peachy up a little bit, tactically being slow to try and get Peachy to fall into a battle with the P3 or P4 driver, which is entirely legal, of course, so long as you're not driving dangerously or you're not intentionally driving to be dangerously. And as a result of that, that can work. I've used the tactic in races as well where I've just driven a little bit slower for an apex to cause 2 drivers behind me to fight. It's a valid tactic so long as you don't abuse it too much. As we're about to get underway with race number 2, we have the time of day change, and then it is going to be a go for another round around the gardens. And I'm going to take a very quick sip of water before I forget. I know it'd normally be wine, as our Portuguese contingent tell me, but unfortunately it's just good old water. And just to clarify for those who think I'm being serious, I'm not a wine fan. Although I don't mind a little bit of a white wine, I'm not a wine person normally, and I would never drink and commentate, and I'd never drink and drive. But as we are waiting to get underway once again, then it should be any second now once the grid has been set and everybody's readied up. Place your bets. Who's going to be coming out on top? Will it be this man right here, bringing home at the win in race number 2, or will it be K2 as he just gets ready to ready up? Will we be seeing the Dutchman making it 2 out of 2 out on circuit? I think the big question on some drivers' minds already, well, given how things are playing out, as we get the countdown then, it's race number 2 coming at you. We get another tour underway, 6 laps. Who's going to be the winner by the end of it? Let's take a look. So as he panned down to the grid, once again, we can see that it's K2 on pole on the left-hand side, Peachiolo on the right-hand side, behind Trousers of Doom and Pingophone. But keep an eye out for our Dutch starting P12 and Golden Dagon starting P13. The 2 Dutchmen will be looking to fight their way up through the field as rapidly as possible. And it's lights out and away we go. And K2 and Peachy both getting a very similar start. But look behind, you can see Trousers of Doom getting the better start of anybody on the front 2 rows. And as they make their way down to turn 1 here, we can see that Trousers trying to find his way into the space between Peachy and K2, but they both shut the door on Trousers immediately. The Brit not able to find a place in there, as we see Radical Ramon getting knocked a little bit wide out of turn 1. I think there's some understeer there as well. H-Boss up into P4 already. H-Boss having a very strong start, in fact, and as they make their way into the triple chicane, we look further back, and Pingo forming a bit of a traffic jam already, with a lot of drivers getting caught up behind him, having an unsettled run through 3, costing him the momentum, and that gap to H-Boss has opened up a little bit, as we see all of our drivers safely making it it through sector 1, and now they come down, of course, into turn number 5, the corner where everybody loves to send it, and we can see that our leaders aren't sending it. But what about behind? Ramon makes a move on Jerry Ardrive. He goes very deep on his brother here, and his brother, as a result, comes back on the inside. The two brothers are side by side as they go up the hill here, and as they come into the left-hander, will Ramon hold around the outside, much like he did in race number 1? He does indeed, and he stays to the inside for turn number 7. But will Jerry Ardrive now come back? These two are side by side for the whole triplet of corners here, and they continue to be side by side. As we see, there's been a little bit of an incident up front. H-Boss versus Pingo Phone there, and Ramon finally makes the move stick, and Jerry Ardrive's knocked wide as not. That goes for an opportunistic move into 9 there, and we can see that Jerry Ardrive has been knocked down to P10. Our Dutch up into P9, gaining where others are losing out as not. That goes wide out the corner, but meanwhile up front we can see that K2 versus Peachy here. Peachy all over the back of K2, and Charles Ledoux under a lot of pressure for the H-Boss, and Boss goes to the move into turn 13. He goes a little bit deep. Charles Ledoux gets a knock off the back by what was Pingo Phone at the time, and you can see that K2's had a difficult run out of the first corner, and as they make their way across the timeline, Peachy drag races past. So it's Peachy Erler after lap 1 leading, followed by K2 by 1.5 tenths, then H-Boss in P3 drag racing alongside Charles Ledoux. They stay with this for the time being, folks, as we see that Charles Ledoux cannot get it on the inside into 1. H-Boss sweeps ahead and closes the door. K2's back up into lead as they're continuing side by side through 1 up into 2. So K2 resumes the lead, having lost it only very briefly. Charles Ledoux in P4, Pingo Phone in P5, Radical Ramon in P6. Then we've got Jerry R. Driver in P7 right now as the Ramon is forming the second pack effectively. Then we've got Non-Ats in P8, who's being chased by a whole swarm of crossbows, as we can see that Smithy's in P9, Zania's Val in P10. Then we've got HRO in P11, R. Dutch battling with Golden Dagan in P12 and P13, the two drivers here, and it's not working out for either of them as K2 defends versus Peachy into turn 5 here and loses a lot of momentum. And we can see that H-Boss, by comparison, is starting to break a little bit away. But we stay with our leaders for the time being as Peachy gets back ahead of K2, coming out through turn 6. But you'll note that K2 goes back on the inside here, and it's almost as if neither driver wants to settle into an order. Both of them want to be the lead driver, but who is it going to be? Well, Peachy gets it a little sideways, and there's contact between the pair of them. And Peachy getting that little bit of oversteer there on exit, sends K2 wide, and K2 rejoins. But it's a disaster for K2, who's been knocked all the way out the circuit. And I think there's going to be a lot of questions about that one as to what exactly happened, but H-Ross will be happy. He'll be gaining up into P2, and Charles Ledoux into P3 right now as we see all our drivers making their way through, and we can see that, well, Pingo Phone into P4 and chased after Charles. He knows it's his opportunity to get a podium, and K2 has rejoined us in P5 ahead of Radical Ramon, so he hasn't lost too much time, has K2, but he's under a lot of pressure now from the relatively new Radical Ramon to GTSRL's Racing League, and you can see that Ramon is making his mark immediately. He doesn't care about the fact K2's a veteran. He's put his stake in the ground and said, sod you, I'm taking this position, and now I'm going to carry on up the road regardless. Ramon up into P5 and pushing very hard is the Dutchman. Keep your eyes on him, folks, because he is doing a very good job tonight. As we can see that Charles Ledoux and Pingo continuing their battle from earlier in race number 1. They go side by side through 1, and Charles comes out the better of the two. Pingo losing that momentum. They're just not having the confidence to be able to keep the car straight coming out of these corners on those inside lines. Pingo not comfortable with running the car off of the racing line as he cuts as much of the curve as possible at turn 4 there and gets it very nicely done, but he doesn't gain enough because of a little bit of unsteadiness as he comes out of 4. But now it's the long run down towards 5. Can we expect to move on the inside? And as he makes his way down, Pingo not going for the move, instead staying in behind and opting to stay behind Charles for a time in. And we can see that K2, by comparison with Veronica, K2 now getting closer to the back of the Dutchman. And I think K2 is going to be looking for a move here up into 13, if not a little bit earlier. But Ramon knows how to play us that car. We've seen him time and time again. When you think you got past him, he just decides to throw it around the outside of you. And K2 going for a move into turn 8, trying to force his way into that position there by putting himself up the inside. And I think Ramon's going to have the inside into 9. Will K2 try and go for the cutback? He does indeed. He makes Ramon go deep under braking. A nice bit of manoeuvre there, a bit of strategy for K2, although he goes wide out of 11, but he keeps it together, and Ramon cannot capitalise right now. The battle for P5 continues as they make their way down the straight here towards turn 13, and you can see that Pingo, having lost out in the battle with Charles Ledoux for P3, is now acting as a bit of a tow magnet for Radical Ramon and K2, as Pingo goes very deep out of 13 into 14 here, and that's going to cost him even more time. Meanwhile, I should point out up front right now, Picciola has pulled a little bit away from H-Boss, but H-Boss is there. This is much like in round number 1, as we can see that our Dutch has retired from this race. I'm not sure what's happened to our Dutch. Something's gone very wrong with the car, but he's had to retire from this race. We hope to have him back. So 12 drivers still remaining, and looking further down the order, we can see that Smithy's in P8 right now. He's got ahead of Not Nats and is continuing on his way, but he's got 2.5 seconds to close up before he can get after Jerry R Driver. So we have 2 packs. We've got the battle for the lead. Then we've got 3 packs. In fact, we've got the battle for the lead, the battle for P3, and then the battle for P8 as Not Nats tries to get under the skid of Smithy's. And Golden Dagan right now in P10 having a very difficult evening at the races as HRL chases after him here and tries to get in a position to strike. But it's all about positions to strike. H-Boss getting ever closer, but goes very deep into the hairpin here and goes for the slingshot of the corner. As a result, he tries to get as much speed as Trousers of Doom cuts a huge chunk out of turn 5. And he will gradually start to pull away a little bit from Pingo there by taking such a tight line. But Pingo's still there, as we can see in the rear of your camera shot. Smithies and Not Nats coming to blows. Not Nats will try to go round for the cutback there. He wasn't able to get it. What about HRL? He's defended on the inside, and Golden Dagan goes to the outside, sweeps it round, and he goes a little bit too far into turn 7, but he sets it up for turn 8. He keeps the car together just about. He keeps it composed. Dagan just about keeps the car pointed in a straight line coming out of 8, and that's a very brave move for P10 there by the Dutchman, but he's made it work. Meanwhile, up front, coming towards the end of lap 4, we can see that Peachy has broken away from H-Boss. The gap has opened up to 1.5 seconds. H-Boss having a disastrous quadruple right-hander from what we're hearing, and as a result now, dropping away a little bit. And we can see that Trouser Doom right now literally got a huge traffic jam of cars behind him. To give you an idea, folks, this is what it looks like from Trouser Doom. You're riding on board with him, looking back from the rear of the car right now, and we can see how we've got Pingo Phone, we've got K2, we've got Ramon, and we've got Jerry R Driver there. All a traffic line of cars there, and Pingo immediately coming out to the inside for turn 1. I think Pingo realises now we're to lap number 5. It's his time to go for a move. He's got the momentum, but he plants it very nicely in front of Trousers going over the apex of turn 1. But does that mean Pingo's going to have the position, or will Trousers come back at him under braking into turn 2? He doesn't, in fact. Trousers stays there very steady, and I think he expects that instead he can put a bit of pressure on Pingo, who does go very deep out of 3, in fact, and then Pingo clatters the curve there. He rides the sausage of 4, and as a result, that costs him so much momentum, and he immediately puts it in the middle of the circuit. In fact, he's going to go defensive down into 5. He's declared his position now. What will Trousers do to react to this as they come down to the braking zone? Then heavy on the brakes they both go, and Trousers decided to go to the outside. I would hope that he's going for the cutback, but Ramon and K2 say to the guys up front, well, that's fair enough, you battling for P3. Mind if we join? Because you can see that Ramon right now and K2 both side by side going up the hill here, and Trousers of Doom is really falling into the firing line as K2's on the inside for 7. He tries to get on the inside of Trousers as well, coming out of 7 and going for the outside of 8, and Ramon cuts a huge chunk out of turn 8 there. I think that's a half-second penalty. It's immediately confirmed that it definitely is, and as they make their way through 9, we can see that it's all going very wrong. And K2 there, I think that was a little bit too adventurous on the inside because he's just not Trousers Doom very wide. But of course, the question will be, who is at fault? The stewards can decide that one, but let's watch what happened here. So as they're making their way through turn number 8, then you're going to see that K2's got the momentum on exit of 8, and he's going to be on the inside here versus Trousers of Doom, but he's not all the way alongside. In fact, Trousers goes very sideways, and K2 carries way too much momentum there. Well, I've been in that position myself, ladies and gentlemen, at an FIA race, and I think there's only one person who's going to be looked at following that one, and we're looking at him right now, because to do that is very unfortunate for Trousers, but K2 definitely trying to make up the places, but costing himself time overall right now, as Picciola goes on to that final lap and is 2.3 seconds clear of H-Boss. Pingo Phone in the third place position right now, what with Trousers being sent off there, and as a result we can see that Ramon, Jerry R Driver and also Smithy's all battling for that P4 position just outside of the podium, and Ramon in P4 right now, he'll be very pleased if he can hold on, but he's got 2 very capable drivers chasing after him. We've got the known driver, Jerry R Driver, of course his brother, and he won't want to let his brother get ahead of him, and then Smithy's in P6, who he's thinking to himself, right, this is the best possible set of points I can have. Can I get some more points on the table in this race? But we'll wait and see, of course, as they come down into turn number 5, and R Driver goes up the inside versus Ramon. But remember, just because R Driver's got past him into turn 5 doesn't mean Ramon's not going to come back, but R Driver gets the much better launch out the corner here, and I think it is said and done where Ramon just could not get the power down as well as Jerry R Driver, and I think his brother is now going to break away, and instead Ramon's going to have to look behind him as he has got Smithy's trying to chase after him, as behind them we see Not Nats trying to catch up, and Trousers Doom and K2 continue to battle Trousers in P8, but meanwhile in that half of P4, R Driver hopes to go very defensive. Ramon drifts into turn 9. He loses the grip on the rear tyres, and that cost him the place to Smithies. This Jerry R driver goes very deep there. He uses the full width of the circuit and then some, and that means that Smithies is now in a prime position to potentially attack, as we see Ramon and also Notnats in the rear of your picture. The rear left-hand side is Notnats. Jerry R driver going defensive into turn 13, and they make their way through the corner here. But meanwhile, to cross the line, race winner of race 2 is the Estonian of Pete Chiola, 2.3 seconds ahead of H-Boss, and it will be Pingo Phone who comes home as we see those cars off on the final corner. Pingo Phone home in P3, and it's Smithies who emerges in P4. We're not sure what happened there. Jerry R driver and Ramon P5 and P6. Notnats P7, and I think there may be a little bit of grievance come the end of the race. Trouser Doom P8, K2 P9, HRL P10, Golden Dagon P11, and Zanizmal having a very difficult second race as well, and now making his way home to the end of the race in P12. He's the last of our drivers finishing on circuit. But of course, we did have that retirement of R Dutch early on in this race, our 13th driver, not able to make it home. So as Zanizmal comes across the line, then that is the completion of race number 2. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner in particular, the Estonian of Pete Chiola. But that is your race number 2 for EU Division 2, round number 2. And here are your race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. Pete Chiola coming home with the win there by 2.3 seconds ahead of H-Boss. A good fight between the two of them, but H-Boss just falling off towards the end there. And then Pingo Phone rounding off our podium. The Austrian, I think, will be very happy with that, albeit perhaps not the way he will have wanted to have got that podium with everything kicking off around him. But still, a podium's a podium, and I think he'll be celebrating that one. Smithies with the P4 there. I think Smithies will be pleased with that one, given the fact he's had a very difficult run so far in season 39. That's his best result by a significant margin. And Jerry R driver rounding off our top 5 there, just pipping his brother to the top 5. But I think the two brothers will have a lot of respect between one another and be pleased to be amongst one another. Lap number 5 was the lap on which the fastest lap was set, a 1:44.469, almost matching our qualifying pole time, in fact, as set by Pete Chiola. Now, of course, the big question going into the final race of this evening, as we move from the sprint races into a... Pardon me, as we wait to go into a feature-length race is... Do you pit for tyres, or do you just pit and come back out on the same set of tyres? And I think, given the fact we are seeing these cars slide so much towards the end of the race, when the grip goes away, I think it's going to be one of those instances whereby our drivers are going to be going for a tyre change, and anybody who doesn't will be making a huge gamble. Perhaps it'll be a worthwhile gamble, but we'll wait and see. And for reference, ladies and gentlemen, we have got 12 laps here in the feature race, so we have got double the distance of races 1 and 2, and that is something which our drivers will need to keep in mind. And particularly when the car starts to get lighter as well, that rear end will want to slide around even more, and given that the tyres will get more and more worn, particularly those rears, it's going to be a much more difficult car to tame. It'll be a faster car if you can tame it, but it's that art of taming the car that's so important. And we're just going to take a very quick sip before we get back. But what a cracking race number 2, and definitely nobody is safe in terms of being on that podium, the top 5, or even the race win. Anybody could get a result here. Well, we are. I think we're going to be waiting as we see I'm going to have to say this correctly here. Canado, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But made a mistake. I'm wondering, are you an EU Division 1 driver or a NA Division 1 driver, Canado? But don't make the same mistake that you did. Definitely change tyres. But we are just waiting, I think, for our Dutch to come back into the lobby right now because he did have that disconnect in race number 2. Although it looks things perhaps a technical issue. We are just waiting for clarification from our Dutch whether everything's okay. And unfortunately, I've just received confirmation, ladies and gentlemen, that we will only be seeing 12 drivers in race number 3. Unfortunately, it's the case that our Dutch will not be able to get the car back out on the circuit due to technical issues. So as a result, we are only going to have 12 drivers instead. And thank you, Irk. Thank you very much for the compliment. We'll continue to do the good work as best as we possibly can here. And Robert there saying as well, better tyre change. So we're down to 12 drivers, but still we've got plenty more action out on the circuit. And let's wait and see what's going to happen come the end of 12 laps. As we also hear from Rox Bacchus, who is our Welshman in EU Division 1, who did not change tyres last night. He made the gamble, then made one mistake on the worn tyres, and that cost him all the time he gained, which was 4 seconds through not changing tyres. Now, in terms of strategy here, folks, I would actually, if I was in the shoes of any driver starting in the second half of the grid, I would probably look to pit after lap 2 or 3 for the simple reason having a clear track on space here is critical. We have seen just how quickly drivers get caught up in battles, and as a result of that they can lose time to drivers ahead of them. And to be honest, given the fact that Gardens is a circuit where it's so difficult to run behind someone, as we have seen time and time again tonight, but when you do, you have to take a huge amount of life out the tyre. I think our rear 6 drivers will be looking to pit early. Perhaps our race leaders, some of the guys not on the front row, but perhaps in say P3 or P4 may gamble pitting early or pitting at the midpoint in the race. And then the question will be for this man right here, Pete Giola, who will be starting on pole, and also the driver next to him, who will be his rival of H-Boss. Will they go long, or will they decide to pit at the midpoint in the race? I think we're going to be seeing pit stops by lap 7 or 8 for our leaders, just for the safety of the car not creeping away from out underneath them. But we're going to wait and see, of course. We have got one more race to go. We've had confirmation it is about to start, so we should be getting that countdown any moment now. And once we get that countdown, it's going to be a lights out and away we go one last time for the racing in EU Division 2 tonight. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we have the countdown. By the end of it, 12 laps. Who is going to be our winner of the feature race? Let's find out. As we pan down to the grid then, Pete Giola on the left-hand side, H-Boss on the right-hand side at the front of your picture, Pingo Phone and Smithy's on that second row. But watch out for Trouser Doom and K2 starting P8 and P9. They'll want to make their way up through the field as quickly as possible, if not go for an alternate strategy. And it's lights out and away we go for the last time. And as we can see, H-Boss getting a much better start compared to Pete Giola here and immediately making it count. H-Boss has already got his nose ahead going into turn 1 here. This is a brilliant start for the contender as he makes his way to the corner. But PG looks for the inside line. He tries to tuck it as close as possible behind as we see Pingo Phone under a lot of pressure. And PG immediately going back on the attack versus H-Boss. He knows how critical it is for him to get ahead and break away. All our drives behind me while Trouser Doom up into P3. Pingo Phone into P4. Trouser Doom has made a lot of ground, in fact, and we see there's been something major happen because drivers are left, right and centre, and Smithies has dropped all the way down from P4 to P8, and K2 has been knocked a little bit wide there. But Trouser Doom, to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, started in P8. He's up into P3 this early on. Trouser Doom has had a monstrous start, and that is incredible. He's up into the podium positions, and I don't think anybody could have expected that, as we can see that Pete Giola right now still chasing after H-Boss. He's all over the back of the Brit like glue, and we can see Zanai's out in the wall there. coming out of turn 5. Was there contact or was he just too early on the power? He rejoins and he's got 3 drivers now chasing after him. As we can see that Zonai goes even wider. There's been contact and he rejoins right at the back of the pack. And in fact, Jerry Ardro, Golden Dagan and HRL all battling for P9. But meanwhile, up front, as they get knocked about here, we can see that we've got Radical Ramon in P5 ahead of Smithies. And we've got behind here K2, who's trying to get his way back into those podium facing positions right now. As Smithies with an indicator on, I think that indicator has been knocked on accidentally, but they charge down towards 13. And looking back at your race leaders, we can see that H-Boss has been able to curb the momentum of Peachy after 1 lap. So as they come out the final corner here to complete lap number 1, you can see that Peachy's going to be very close, but these two are literally neck and neck in terms of pace. So as they come down to the start-finish line to move on to lap number 2, here's H-Boss ahead of Peachy by 2.5 tenths. And behind them is Charles Ledoux, followed by Pingo Phone, then Radical Ramon in P5, Smithies in P6, K2 in P7, Jerry R Driver in P8. He's inherited P8 as Golden Dagan immediately goes to the early pit stop there and drops down the order, but he is the first driver to pit and the only driver to pit at the end of lap number 1. So nice about P9, HRL in P10 after a difficult start for these guys, and Not Nats in P11. But as we look back up to our front right now, we can see that things are calming down a little bit, and this gives us a brilliant opportunity to see how on earth Charles Ledoux got that fantastic start. So we're going to see that he was up into P7 and going down to the corner, and he's got Jerry Ardro on his right side. He's also got Smithies on his right side, and Charles Ledoux just literally placed himself. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. He's on the inside of everybody going into turn 2. Charles Ledoux making a 4-place overtake into turn 2. That is incredible. We haven't seen that in ages. I haven't seen that in all my time of casting GTSRL, and that is incredible for the British driver. Really placing that car well, getting the start right, and now he's up into P3. Well, I think that's the overtake of the race, or the year, I'd say right now. I don't think anything else is going to compare to that, although prove me wrong, of course, as we see, meanwhile, coming back to the here and now, Pingo under a lot of pressure from Radical Ramon, who's in P5 and sniffing the back of Pingo like a rabid dog. The Dutchman really putting pressure on the Austrian right now, and Pingo not giving into it, as we do see that Peachy has got ahead of H-Boss, albeit for a limited time, and they're side by side again, coming out of 12 and in the run to 13 and 14 here. And as they go into the corner, Peachy's on the inside as H-Boss tries to hang it around the outside here, and we can see that H-Boss goes deep and goes off the circuit. He goes out onto the marbles, and Trousers of Doom is up into P2 as Peachy breaks over to left, feinting to go into the pits and also to break the toe a little bit here. And we see that Trousers of Doom is literally on a flyer right now. The Brit is just coming from nowhere. He's up into the lead, but he's on the outside into 1. Peachy on the inside. They go into the corner, and you can see H-Boss goes for the double move on the pair of them, and I think H-Boss is going to have it. He's come back in behind them. He's got into the inside for the braking zone into turn 2, and H-Boss is back into the lead. It's literally, we have got a 6-way battle for the lead right now on lap number 3. 7-way battle. We've got Smithies in here. We've got K2 who's jumped in here. Would you believe it? We have got 7 drivers all within the space of what is effectively 2 seconds from one another, and they're all chasing after the lead right now. And we see that H-Boss is at the head of that pack, and Trousers of Doom is trying to get a one-up on H-Boss now as they go down into turn 5. Behind them, there's no change on over, although K2 looks at the move versus Ramon. He does it on the inside. He clips the apex curve and gets it to rotate the car around, and he's up into P5. But of course, now he's got to find a way into P4, but at the same time, not lose any time to Ramon and Smithies, who would love to come back at him and get back into P5. This is absolutely crazy. And of course, given the fact that one driver has already pitted, and that is Golden Dagan, as has just been pointed out to me in the chat by Olaf, who we say hi to, Dagan right now in clear air is gaining time on all of these guys as they continue to fight one another, and you never know, if Dagan could hook it up in race number 3, he could be in this fight come the end of the race. But as they make their way through turn number 12, once again, for the third time of asking, it's all chop and change. It's like sales at a supermarket here. You don't know which one's going to be priced up higher than the next. But you can see that Peachy making his way back onto the rear of Charles Ledoux and looking for that move as Trousers, I think, receives a little bit of a knockdown drift in, but K2 immediately launches it up the inside into 14 versus Trousers. He knows that he needs to get it. He's got past Pingo Phone under braking into 13. K2 is flying right now. He's not doing it perhaps the cleanest way that we'd like, but he is flying and he is chasing after the leaders. He knows he can win this one, and he just needs to get there. But now he's got to go after Peachy, and that is going to be a much bigger feather in his cap to inherit. As we can see that K2 looking for the move versus Peachy into turn 2, but he can't quite get it, although he does get it, he goes for a lunge, but this is going to put him on the outside into 3 here, and K2's going to lose a lot of momentum. In fact, he's cost Peachy a lot of momentum as well, so this has turned into a case right now where H-Boss can break away as Peachy and K2 are side by side coming out of 4 in the long run down towards 5, and Trouser Doom and Pingo are both going side by side into the back of this. You can see it's 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah, and it will turn into 4 wide very shortly as Trousers has got the momentum. He goes very deep on the brakes, and K2 cuts back in on the inside. K2 up into P2 and Trousers in P3. Peachy trying to squeeze his way back into this battle here as he makes his way back into P4. He's got Pingo behind him as Pingo settles back into the racing order here, and Ramon and Smithies have just fallen a little bit back right now, but I think they'll be watching for this and just keeping their eyes on what's happening because the fighting, and oh goodness me, there's been major contact. What has happened here? K2's off, Trousers was almost off on the opposite side of the circuit. It's getting very aggressive out there as we see Trousers goes wide out of turn 10. He's being knocked about. He's been knocked about like a pinata, and Trousers into the wall, and he's back on circuit in P7, but he's lost a lot of time there as we see Pingo Phone goes wide out of turn 12. It's all kicking off. It is getting very messy indeed, and I don't think it's what everybody would have wanted, but still that means the fight is opening up for P2. But right now the one driver who is running away with things is H-Boss, who is 2.7 seconds up the road as we see Ramon comes into the pits, or does he? He does come into the pits from P3. He's going for the pit stop to give himself the clear space out on track as we see all of our drivers now space out a little bit here, and meanwhile also Pingo Phone into the pits, and we can see that Golden Dagon in P9. Well look, this is where Dagon is coming out right now. Remember, he was the first to pit on lap number 1, and he's going to jump ahead of Pingo and Raymond already. I believe he's going to, or is it going to be side by side coming into turn 1? Actually, Raymond has come out ahead, but Dagon has inherited the position from Pingo. So that fighting is bringing Dagon back into the mix here and giving him the time advantage. And for Raymond and also for Pingo, they'll both be pleased at the fact, well, Pingo less so, of course, because he's now got Dagon he has to pass on the circuit. But Raymond will be happy because this gives him a great opportunity in order to undercut everybody ahead, as we see that H-Boss right now can just break away a little bit, and it is the drivers behind Peachy and K2 in particular who have to either choose to push for pace now and go long, or they have to choose to undercut H-Boss immediately and try to find their space out on the circuit and react to the guys behind. As you see that Smithy's in P4, and I'm not sure what's happened to Trousers here, folks, but he's dropped even further down the order. Let's take a look-see. Well, no, my sincere apologies. That's him still in P5 after everything was cleared. We didn't quite catch what happened in the contact coming out of turn 8 down into 9 between Trousers and K2, and how it all kicked off and how a Pingo got caught in there. There was a bit of a nuke crying out at midway through the circuit, but you can see that Jerry R. driver in P6 is catching up to Trousers gradually, but I don't think you'll feel he's in the fight for the top 5 here. I think he's just going to keep putting in that pace and try to get as close as possible to the fighting that could kick off come the end of the race. Now, things have scattered out a little bit right now, so we're going to look a little bit further down our order at the drivers we haven't really seen too much of, and we can see Raymond already catching up to Dagon coming the end of the run into turn number. My sincere apologies, wasn't Raymond ahead of Golden Dagon? I believe he was. What has happened to our Dutchman? Well, he was passed, in fact, through the quadruple right-hander, so something went very wrong for Raymond going through turn 8 or into turn 9, because he's down into P8, and Dagon now is charging, and I believe he perhaps seals the Dutchman here that he could be on for the race win, or at least a podium if he keeps it together, so we'll keep our eyes on him with interest. As we look further back, and we can see that Notnats in P10 right now in a battle with HRL. Neither of these drivers have yet to pit, and then it is a 16.5 second gap all the way down to Zanayasmal, who is having a very difficult race, and I think he's just decided to take it as softly as possible here. It's not a good night for Zanayasmal, as we do see that H-Boss is being closed up by Peachy earlier. The gap has come down from 2.7 seconds over the previous lap to now 2 seconds as they're making their way midway through lap number 6, and I think in the case of Peachy, he's trying to really put the hammer down and close up to H-Boss. But remember, these two are very equal in terms of pace, and I wouldn't count out anybody within our top 3 in winning this race, and I wouldn't count out potentially Trouser Doom or Radical Ramon. Alternatively, well, hold on a second, we are missing somebody here. I can see that, and that is Golden Dagon. What has happened to our Dutchman? Well, whatever's happened, it must have happened out of turn 4, because he was going very slowly there in the run down towards turn 5. So the Dutchman has fallen off the cliff, unfortunately, and as a result, he has dropped down the order, which releases Raymond and Pingo, of course. But Pingo has not had a very good time of things, and Raymond also not doing too well on this new set of tyres, not being able to adapt to the changing grip and also the weight of the car with the fuel coming out of the car as much as he would like. So things are not working out for our midfield drivers who pitted early right now, and you'd be expecting that they would be the ones who are trying to gain as much as possible as K2 comes into the pits. Now this is important for the race win, as Smithies also comes into the pits from P4 and Trouser Doom from P5 as well. So these three all going for the undercut versus our leaders, as we see H-Ross and Pete Chiola continue on their merry way, and Jerry R. Driver will be ahead of them. But where does Raymond come out compared to them? Does Raymond jump them? He's going to come out ahead of Smithies, but well, actually I said that, no he's not. He's going to come out right behind, so the undercut has not worked for Raymond, albeit Trouser Doom lost out, but of course there was the instant. But Raymond has not gained enough here versus Smithies and K2, and he will be on the slightly more shod tyres, so he's got to get past them quick here and then hold them up or chase after. So it has not worked out for Raymond right now, as we see there's contact between himself and Smithies as they make their way out of turn 4, and now that they charge all the way up towards turn number 5 here, who out of the two of them is going to come out on top. And in terms of how much time is lost in the pits, to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, well, the gap between K2 and our leader right now is 20.5 seconds. That gap was approximately 4.5 to 5 seconds, so that pit stop I believe is costing our drivers, if you do the math, about the region of say 15 to 16 seconds, but my math may not be 100% accurate. But as we can see in the rear view camera shot there very briefly, we've got Trouser Doom making his way, and Pingo Phone under a lot of pressure for Golden Dagan right now. Dagan coming back into the fight, but having these inconsistencies, these blips, just seemingly holding him off or getting in a very strong result right now, as we can see Pingo having to defend versus Dagan coming out of turn 8 and now coming down into turn 9 for the 7th time of asking. Now, I think the Austrian at this point is more about damage limitation in this race rather than looking after that podium, but never say never. But he has lost out to all the drivers who pitted, as H-Boss pits from the lead, as does Peacher. They both pit on lap number 7. They're both going for the approach, as we see Jerry Ardro going very wide out of turn number 13 there. Is it his time to come into the pits, or will he continue? Jerry R. Driver continues here, and he is going for the ultimate strategy of going long. I think his idea is he doesn't want to come out near anybody, but H-Boss is going to come out ahead of him. What about Peachy? Will Peachy have cleared Jerry R. Driver? He just about does it. So if Jerry hadn't gone off there, I think he would have been a lot closer and perhaps in the Estonian's way. But it's now a race to the finish line for our P1 and P2 driver, as we can see that K2 is only 5 seconds down the road, so that is confirmation. It's 15.5 seconds for a pit here if you do take that tyre change as well, and as a result we can see that K2 having a very, very difficult day in the office, and now he's got to get past Jerry, and then he's got to close down what is a 5-second gap to the race win. But as we see behind Smithies, under a lot of pressure from Raymond right now. Raymond gradually pulling over to the side in order to block off, Smithies pulling over to the side there to block off Raymond. But I think Raymond's going to send it on the inside here into turn 5. He goes late on the brakes versus Smithies. They go into the corner. There's a little bit of contact there, and the Smithies gets knocked wide. But I think in return, as they now come out the final corner for the final phase of acceleration, coming out of turn number 5, he'll be flashing his lights immediately, feeling that he's been inconvenienced and pushed to pass has occurred. And Smithies, we know when that happens, might start to see a little bit of red as they make their way through turn 7 and up into 8. And Smithies looking for the cutback immediately here. These are two closest drivers on the circuit, and Smithies gets it wrong at turn number 8, and he spins into the wall there. He's going to have to get that car recovered. He spins it round, but that has gone from what was looking to be a very strong race result to a disaster for Smithies, who will have to just keep it cool and get back out on circuit in short order. But as they make their way all the way up to turn number 13, you can see that K2 right now is not gaining enough on a H-Boss. That gap has only come down by the best part of approximately 3/10 over the course of this lap. But as K2 goes wide out of turn number 14, he'll have the slipstream of Jerry R. Driver ahead of him in short order. But can he get that slipstream on a straight, or will it be into the corners? Remember, Jerry has not pitted yet, and you can tell because look, well, I say Jerry has not pitted. In fact, well, I apologise. Yeah, he definitely has not pitted. I was going to say Jerry has not pitted for certain here. I'm completely losing my mind here. And as we can see, Jerry R. Driver making his way down into turn 2. I think it's going to be a case that K2 is going to be there very shortly, and I don't think Jerry's going to hold his teammate up for too much. And if anything, K2 will be hoping what Jerry will do is will give him the tow down to turn 5 here, and then give him the tow up the hill into turn 6, but back out of it before they go into the apex of turn 6. And that would be the best thing he could do as his teammate right now to help him catch up, because he is getting closer and closer to the drivers ahead through the slipstream tow. And let's see what happens between these two. But before we do, of course, we can see Jerry R. Driver go out the way there. He went very deep into the hairpin, and Golden Day Dagan ahead of Pingo Phone. Again, this battle for P7 continuing as Smithy's in P9 is having to hold off HRL right now, recovering from what was a difficult situation coming out of turn number 8 on the previous lap. And HRL looking for the comeback here, looking to the inside into turn 5 as they make their way, and Smithy shuts the door and makes his way through, but he goes a little bit deep there, and HRL has the space to come back. He has the traction to come back as well, but Smithy's does get the acceleration nailed, and HRL tucks in for another lap as they go through the left to right to left sequence of 6 to 8. But meanwhile, Pingo chasing after Golden Dagan right now. This is the battle for P7 as it stands, and we reckon that this is going to be the battle for P6 once Jerry R. Driver pits. Although Jerry R. Driver could surprise these guys. He is 17 seconds up the road, so if Jerry's nailed this, he'll come out just ahead of them, and he could chase after Trousers of Doom on the final laps. But meanwhile, coming back to this battle, Dagan and Pingo battling one another once again, and if this battling continues, Jerry's in the pits right now. This is going to be very close and critical between the two. Jerry going long, I think, as Pingo's made the move here, but will Jerry come out ahead of them? We're going to jump to Pingo Phone here, and watch out as the camera's going to pan as he comes across the timing line. Watch out, are we going to expect Jerry on the left? There's Jerry, and I think Jerry has done it. I think Jerry's jumped up the position here into P6. No, he hasn't quite. He's fallen out just behind Pingo Phone and just ahead of Dagan, who's had to go to the outside to try and sweep round, and Dagan will want to get ahead of our driver as quickly as possible before he can get those tyres up to temperature, because Jerry, by going long, has gained a good number of places and is now up into P7. It was never going to be a podium, but our driver here could be hunting down a P6 or a P5 come the final lap. But Dagan immediately going on the offensive here, immediately going on the attack. He's going to the inside in the drag race down towards turn number 5, and Jerry needs the time to get those tyres heated up. He did. In fact, Jerry did not take the tyres on either, so I'm not sure about the time there, what's happened, but Jerry did not take the tyres on. He's gone for the undercut, and that's well spotted there by Eric, as he makes his way through turn 6, and we can see that Jerry, in fact, by not taking those tyres, it's just lost him the grip, and Dagan is back into P7. Well, Jerry played the gamble, but still he's up into P8, and if he can keep it together, he will be able to come home in P8 a lot higher than perhaps he anticipated going into this one. But H-Boss right now in that battle for the lead. We've only got 2 more laps to go, and we can see that H-Boss being hunted down by Peachy. The gap is 1 second now. Peachy just getting that a little bit closer lap after lap, and K2 6.5 seconds down the road and making the mistake out of turn number 14. He's not in this race for the lead anymore unless the leaders take one another out or cost each other that much time through fighting, but I don't think they're going to do so. But Erla and Boss both chasing one another around the circuit. It's cat versus mouse. And we can see that Peachy is really having to push as hard as humanly possible right now. The Estonian knows that H-Boss is his equal, but he's just got a little component, and he nails it there through the first sector, albeit he gets a little sideways coming out of turn number 4. That will cost him a small bit, but he's in the tow. He's got the slipstream, so he doesn't lose as much time as it would have cost him, and he'll now be gaining on H-Boss. But remember, getting into that tow is one thing. Staying in there and putting in the solid laps is another thing as they make their way through turn 5, and H-Boss being a lot stronger under braking through the hairpin, but now in the uphill run, that's where Peachy will regain once again. Looking further back, of course, Pingo's got a 7/10 of a second gap over Dagan. Pingo, the Austrian, there trying to hold on for P6, and looking further back, we can see that Jerry R. Driver falling off the back of Dagan. That car looking very unsettled with those worn tyres as he goes into turn number 5 for the 11th time. Drifted it through the corner here. I think Smithy's is going to be in attacking range by the end of this lap, but up front we can see that H-Boss and Peachy still ever closer, and they're getting closer and closer come the end of turn number 12, and Peachy has pulled 3 tenths over H-Boss coming out that corner, and H-Boss immediately going defensive, then realising he doesn't need to. Peachy's not close enough and is not prone to go for the inside move there. As they make their way out of turn 14, you can see that H-Boss feeling that pressure, the car getting a little bit slidey, as is Peachy's. Both drivers so close to one another. It's neck and neck as we come on to the final lap. Then we look back from H-Boss's car here. 1 more lap to go. Who is going to be your race winner? Will it be the Brit or will it be the Estonian? We're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as they make their way around through turn number 1, and immediately H-Boss putting a little bit of a gap initially, but into the braking zone. This is where Peachy is strongest compared to the two of them. home. As we look back to Peachy right now, as he makes his way through turn number 3, hops over the curve there, through turn number 4. Can he nail the sausage? He evades it instead. He decides instead to take the safe line 9. He's got a momentum going on H-Ross. He's got a lot of momentum here, in fact. It's not going to put him close enough, I think, under braking, unless he lunges it into turn 5, but he's getting ever closer. It's going to come down to the last corner on the last lap, I reckon, as Peachy goes to the deep line here. He's looking for a cutback. H-Ross went defensive. By defensive, he's lost himself a lot of momentum, but Peachy taps the side of H-Ross's car. They are literally nose to tail as they go up the hill into turn 6. H-Ross defending to the inside once again, keeping it consolidated for turn number 7. Peachy just sits there behind, contemplating where he can strike. H-Ross sliding through the corners here. Peachy much more composed. H-Ross having to wring the neck out of that KTM crossbow. Peachy keeping it nice and cool. They go into the quadruple right-hander, 9, 10, 11, 12, and H-Ross makes a mistake. H-Ross goes out onto the white line and picks up the marbles, but Peachy makes a mistake in turn 11. There's contact, and Peachy's back to P2. H-Ross side by side, the pair of them, they go up the hill to turn 13. Peachy's on the inside, H-Ross on the outside. Will Peachy do it on the brakes? Can he nail it and not go too deep? H-Ross tries to sweep around the outside, but Peachy's there on his inside. They give each other just about enough space to go side by side. It's a drag race out of the corner, but Peachy's got it. The Estonian has done it. He comes at the end of the 12 laps. He picks up the win ahead of H-Ross, missing out by 0.2 of a second. What a close race, and K2 just wasn't there to come home in P3 in the end, and Ramon holding on to P4 in what has been a fantastic round 2 for the junior driver. He comes across the line ahead of Charles Doom, and then Pingo Phone brings it home in P6 ahead of Dagan, and then finally it is Smithies in P8 after what was a very difficult time but a much improved result set compared to last week. Smithies will take that on board as he comes across the line in P8. Jerry Ardro couldn't hold on to P8 at the end, comes over P9. HRL rounds off our top 10, and then it will be Not Nats as he makes his way through the final corner. Coming out of that final corner right now, 15.5 seconds down on our top 10, but still, give him a round of applause. The Brit comes across the line to pick up P11, and then last but not least of our running drivers, just making his way around the circuit right now, having had a very difficult evening. Zanai is now not comfortable with this combination, not enjoying this combination, but he's fighting on nonetheless, and that's the sportsman within him, continue to fight on and support his teammate. His teammate, of course, being our race winner of Peachy. He makes his way through turn number 12, only 2 more quarters to go, and Zanai will be rounding things off in P12. But what a cracking race number 3, and what a cracking battle between our race winners. Peachy Erler there and H-Ross, well, you could have called it any title, but Peachy Erler making it 2 wins back to back. He couldn't get the triple tonight compared to round number 1, but I think he'll be very pleased with 2 wins as Zanai comes to complete our race, picks up the checkered flag in P12. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner, Peachy Erler from Estonia. Goodness me, what a way to end the racing tonight. And here are your race results, subject to any steward's inquiries, of course. Peachy Erler making it 2 wins back-to-back, only by 0.2 of a second over H-Ross, doing the move in the final corner on the final lap. That must have had both of the drivers' heart rates absolutely pounding through the ceiling of their heart and their rib cage. But meanwhile, K2 picking up the P3, rounding off our podium, and the Dutchman of Radical Ramon coming P4, and the Brit of Trouser Doom coming home in P5, rounding off our top 5. Peachy Erler with the fastest lap on lap 11 of 1:44.236. I believe the fastest lap we have seen all night in EU Division 2, whether it be in the race or qualifying. But what a fantastic set of races. And well, I think if that's any indication, we are going to have some phenomenal racing in round number 3. And I think we are going to see a lot more of Peachy and H-Ross going toe-to-toe with K2 in the mix there. It's definitely not the case that we've got a runaway winner in EU Division 2. We have got multiple drivers who are really pushing hard, and it is incredible. There is going to, of course, be a lot for the stewards to look at following tonight's races. There was a lot of contact in all three races, and a lot of moments where I think the drivers could have given one another a bit more room, or just respected the fact that 2 or 3 do not go into one into some corners. But you have to say, EU Division 2 have provided us with some phenomenal racing tonight. It's been a hugely exciting set of 3 races, and I think now the only thing we can do is hand off from them to a little bit of King of the Karts. But whilst we are waiting, of course, Jerry Aldridge is going to be getting things set up. Oh, goodness me. There's the King of the Karts switcheroo. I need a sip of water. I need a drink. Because that was incredible. So as we get in our magical little cart. And we need to fix the camera, I've just realised. Because otherwise this is going to be a very interesting racing experience. There we go. Right, let's get out. This is going to be a fun one in King of the Karts, because this circuit, well, these karts can be thrown around here really nicely. You have to be wary of those curbs though, because they're going to lift the car. Whoa, that camber there, that lifted the car massively. The kart. See Bacchus creeping into the room. The Welshman there trying to get in. And Luco as well. 2 Welshmen charging in here. Okay, can't power slide it through the hairpin like that. Remember, next week, folks, we go to Spa in the KTM crossbow machines. As we get underway then with King of the Karts EU Division 2, Round 2. Let's see what we can do. Launching our driver and his kart through the barriers there at turn 9. Oh no, I'm not starting at the front, am I? Oh no. Never been here before. So I guess the plan is to let everybody through. It's 2 laps as well, so just take your time with this. Oh, there's a bit of a contact already. Yellow flag. We've got flag rules on. That's going to make this hilarious. Because people are going to be gaining positions. And the yellow flag is going to say no. Alright, well that was a difficult start, but we were on the outside of turn 1, so that's understandable. We need to use 5th gear. Oh, hello, Peachy. Just yeeting me into the wall. Love you too. I'm going to get a penalty for that pass, I think. Where am I? I don't know. I don't know if we've got penalties due to flags on or not. Crazy. Whoa, 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 whoa! Hello, Kato. There's go-karts. Oh, this is working out nicely. There's bits of go-kart everywhere. There's bits of human being. There's everything. That's fine. Oh, I don't like this. Everyone's getting ready to give one another the elbow. Right, that's one. Yes! Oh, come on! No, it was a dead heat! What the heck? Yeah, well, I mean, who wins, Martin? Because technically, both equal, mate. Oh, that was crazy. Oh. That is, that's something. That is, I've never seen that. I've never seen that in GT Sport, but there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Martin and I both having identical finishing times down to the 1,000th of a second. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, that's the tie. I mean, technically, according to the alphabeti spaghetti order, he's on the top there. I guess that's the way they do it. There's got to be something here. Oh, but that's the results for King of the Karts. HRL rounded off the podium. Jerry R. Driver and Pingo picking up the rest of the top 5. Oh dear, what good fun. But nonetheless, that concludes EU Division 2's round number 2 tonight. And, well, it has been a pleasure to bring this to you, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I wish you all a lovely evening. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling. And remember to come back tomorrow night for EU Division 3's round number 2. But until then, remember to stay on track. Good night.